Okay, I think that we are live. We are officially back. We have tons to talk about. A lot has happened since that little small hiatus that we took. So we're jumping back into it, back in the fold. The Mets are as nerve-wracking as ever, and we're going to get into all of it. Now, for those of you who are watching on YouTube or X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, I want to say that there is going to be a new intro, but it's under construction as of right now. But for our audio listeners, it's going to be the exact same jazzy intro music. So let's just roll it. Let's get this thing started. Tons to talk about. The New York Mets versus the Marlins series recap. Mets Weekly Podcast, episode number 50. Okay, so for those of you who are watching right now, this is our usual house cleaning because we have not been here for a while, so I'm just going to give everybody a reminder. I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for this very podcast that will be recorded live every single Sunday and Thursday now, following every series of all games. For those of you who are watching on playback and you want to join the live conversation, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know that when we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, I want to let you know that we love reading your comments. We love reading your questions, your concerns. And if you feel like they're being ignored at any current moment when you type them, they aren't. They will be starred by everybody here on the panel just to keep the flow of the show. And so my co-hosts do not interrupt a discussion because they want to yell at some stranger with a keyboard and derail the entire situation. So just so you know, that's one of the main reasons as to why Carson stopped doing live shows in the first place. What?
People were yelling at comments? Who did that?
I don't know who was doing that, Frank. I have no idea who was doing that. No clue. Anyways, now speaking of reasons why we have not done live shows for a while, Andrew, welcome back. It's been a while. How you feeling?
I leave in pure chaos, and I come back, and it's like I've never left. The Mets are in pure chaos. Now we've got meltdowns. We have offense. Now we have pitch. There's plenty of chaos, and again, just normal Mets baseball in the middle of May. So think about it. We still got a long season to go, so might as well jump back in. You know, I'm taking a break, not losing as much hair, growing the hair out, but by the time probably the end of this episode, we might be bald again.
I'm already on that pace. Frank, you are able to do your 1 minute recaps every single day, but you don't get to say much off the top of your head. And now you get to again. So how you feeling? Let me just ask that. How does it feel to watch this team?
Well, if you're paying attention to the recaps, they've been getting more and more angrier and more frustrated. It's felt like this constant bad show we've been watching, and the episodes just continue to get worse and just more bad things happen over and over. Because when you have, one bad game where you walk a couple guys, give us some stolen bases, all right, it happens. It's a bad game. But when it's the same thing every single day and you're losing games that you have in the bag, I mean, yesterday was just the perfect example, but games in the bag, it looks like you're going to win and you still end up losing. It's just beyond frustrating. So it's been a rough stretch. This team started with a rough stretch, as we know. They got it going, and now they're in a bit of a rough stretch again. So, 162, there are those peaks and valleys, but at some point, things kind of got low line. You can't have the lows just keep getting this low. It just makes it really tough to come back from it and just kind of stay at an even field, because as we're going to get to, I mean, your poll, that's like the Mets core is struggling. I mean, other than Nimmo, it's like the core guys that, you're saying these are our future building blocks. With the offer the Mets made Alonso, he didn't accept it. These are the guys that we're kind of carry our offense, and they're not doing it. And you see the results on the daily basis of it's like, okay, bullpen ERA is pretty good, but the offense, it just comes and goes, just very inconsistent. And the guys you're counting on in that middle part, just not getting it done. I mean, we talk so much about lineup construction. That's been a topic on the Mets Weekly podcast forever, especially this past offseason. And, you know, you talk about your number 2, number 3, those should be your best hitters. As of right now, it feels like those have been the Mets' 2 worst hitters. So it's like, just again, the way you construct a baseball team, the way things are supposed to go, it just obviously has not been going that way.
Yeah, I think that there's a few redeeming possibilities that could make this team better, obviously, but you can't really count on that. You know, I mean, Kodai Senga is one of them, who we'll get into, obviously, with his whole, you know, health situation. And, you know, there's a possibility that a catcher comes back in the next few weeks. But again, you can't really rely on that, you know, whole situation where, you know, maybe the Mets they have a top-heavy roster right now. We've talked about it before. And when those top-heavy pieces, who are supposed to be the main contributors, are not contributing consistently, it really makes this team bleed. And they bleed a lot. Rode, I'll go to you. How have you felt? Because I don't think you've been on here for a while. Like, you haven't really been present for any content, I don't think, for a while.
Yeah, I know, really disappointing. You know, honestly, like, I don't want to be too impulsive, but I truly do think that blowing this team up is the best course of action. At the trade deadline, like, even if we're like, near
I don't blame you for
spot,
feeling that. I really don't. I really don't.
Look at this. Alonso declined. What was it? 7 years, 150. What was it? What was the exact number? Does anyone have?
Yeah, we can get into that for a second, because I do. Explosive Diarrhea coming in here saying Pete probably listened to Boris and declined the $158 million extension. Joel Sherman also reported he believes Pete and JD will be available at the trade deadline. Listen, I think that, you know, it could be a possibility. Obviously, you know, we're towards the end of May here, but if you're looking at this constant peak and valley of where the Mets can't really get, you know, everything together on one side, where one time the offense is going, the pitching's going, the defense is screwing up, the bullpen's screwing up. If you're going to get that consistently inconsistent wave throughout the entire season, you know, how long until you call a spade a spade? Like, that's how I kind of how you're going to have to look at it. I'm not ready to, you know, blow it up completely, but I understand people that want to do that. I get it. I understand that. I think you're muted again. Road.
The fact of the matter is, like, this team hasn't won anything. The only 2 guys, like, I would love to bring back Pete next year. And, you know, I think what I have realized, and I think, well, I don't know if every other people thought of this way, but the Mets being good or bad this year has absolutely no impact on next year's team. It has no impact. Half the roster's on a 1-year deal. Most of the people on these 1-year deals are having great years, and we're still not winning. The top of our line, like, look, the Mets have Pete and JD Martinez, 2 bats that if the Mets decide to trade them, they could get so much for these 2 guys. Severino, Mania, there's a lot of relievers we can trade. I mean, the opportunity to really rebuild this team is right in front of us in the way, if the Mets operate in what my opinion would be rationally and sell, that doesn't eliminate Pete Alonso from coming back to the team. He's signed with Boris. Whoever pays him's getting him, right? And you can make a big trade for, let's say, if a Kyle Tucker becomes available, a Luis Robert, like, especially with Luis Robert, I think the Mets need a long-term center fielder in here. I don't want Brandon Nimmo next year. He'll be 32. I don't want to play in center field. If Luis Robert can be the long-term center fielder.
It's 32 next year?
Yeah.
It's 32. Yeah. Jesus.
And the Mets can make a big trade and still have a good farm left over, because the fact of the matter is the Mets are going to have to trade some of their prospects. There's 1 sec.
I mean, there is a logjam. He is right about that. I mean, there is a logjam. We've talked about that before, whether it is the Jet Williams and Luis Angel Acuna, or, you know, maybe there's just some pitchers who are here who, you know, maybe they're possible options, but they just don't really have a spot for them yet. And even though the Mets do not have many pitchers locked down long term, you know, I think that you're definitely going to see how they can piece this thing together of who's going to be the future pieces. And, you know, it's obviously going to be a topic of discussion at the trade deadline. I think that, you know, we're definitely going to have a very pivotal moment of this franchise. We're going to see like the real top of what David Stearns is going to do at the trade deadline. But at this current moment, I think that if you're looking at the product on the field, and you know, we can recap the series of what has gone on, and we've seen a lot of things that, you know, I mean, the Mets, listen, on the bottom of the screen, for those of you who are listening on playback after this was live, on the bottom of the screen, it says that the Mets got embarrassed in South Beach. Now, you may disagree with that because they left on a high note. They won. Personally, as to what I have seen so far in this month of a half of a season, I don't care that they won today. I really don't. Because those first two games, I hate to be the bearer of bad news. Those two first games were embarrassing. Those are two of the most embarrassing games that I have watched in a long time. And that's coming from a Mets fan who has seen the dark ages, who has seen all of these disgusting losses. That's unacceptable. And we'll get into on tons of the reasons why. Getting shut out by the Marlins. Like, I understand facing Jesus Luzardo. Luzardo is a great pitcher. He's struggled, but he's got a great future ahead of him. Getting shut out by the Marlins. Basically, not even, I mean, I understand maybe, you know, the jet lag. We've talked about that before. Maybe there was the jet lag there. Personally, I don't care because I could be jet lagged off of a 16-hour flight, and I believe that I could probably beat the Marlins single-handedly because they are that bad of a team. So, and then the second game, of course, the offense shows up, and then their top gun went out, and it's been a topic of concern, which we will obviously get into. But from these three games, I am not satisfied. I'm not encouraged by pretty much anything at all, to be honest, from that series, because even if they did something good, it's against the frickin' Marlins. That team is terrible. And I'm not trying to like discard any credit or anything, but like that was embarrassing. How do you only salvage one game from the Marlins? No disrespect to the Marlins. I'm sure they're a fine organization. I'm sure. Okay? Derek Jeter left. They're a little bit more likable.
Are they, though?
But are they? I don't know. Okay, listen, I'm just spitballing here. I'm sure they're a fine organization, but that team sucks. That team is depleted. That team is injured. They traded their best hitter, whether you like Luis Ariz or not. I mean, they're terrible. That's a terrible team. I mean, you know, Frank, you've recapped these games. Obviously, it went to you, but I mean, what else can you take away from this besides that the fact that it was embarrassing?
I think you got to take a good look at the medical staff and see how they got the stomach bug and try not to get any other bugs because, I mean, you have Brandon Nimmo having to leave the game early. Then, you know, JD Martinez, he's got a stomach flu. And all of a sudden, everyone's not feeling well. And they're like, oh, it could be a contagious thing. And I'm just like, well, what are we doing here? I mean,
I'm just like, I really am tired of making those excuses, though.
It's always the Mets. You know? Like, I don't hear about other teams dealing with stomach flus. I mean, it's just something that it's just really strange.
Well, all these other teams have the horse tranquilizers where they can just, you know, prep these guys up. Meanwhile, the Mets, somehow, they just want to make guys worse while they're injured or sick. So
No, but look, at the end of the day, I think it's, as much as we don't want to accept this, I think it's time. We're the Mets. We don't win. We don't have good luck.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what else. Like, I've been trying to tell myself that, oh no, maybe this year. It's not this year. This team is the fact that we're a game and a half out of the wild card. We are so lucky to be in this position right now. And they've given me no reason to have faith that they will take advantage of it. Like, the way that this team is not playing well, They don't go deep into games. They don't hit. They have a feeble offense, for lack of a better word. Like, we need to blow it up. I'm coming back here the first time in a long time with hot takes.
He's saying this May 19th, folks, and I listen. I can't say it's an overreaction. I really can't.
A year and a half. This team has performed so poorly. Even with good contributions from pretty much, I mean, from most of our rotation. JD Martinez has been great. Pete's heating up. I'm just feeling the only guys who are here to stay. The only guys I would not look to trade on this roster are Brandon Nimmo and Francisco Lindor. Everybody else, I would be willing, including Kodai Senga. He is an opt-out next year. This team needs to rebuild, okay? And rebuilding can also coincide with rebuilds don't have to take 5 years, okay? We have a strong farm, and if we sell, it would get a hell of a lot stronger. We are the Mets, and this Mets team is not doing anything, in my opinion, okay? So that doesn't mean don't go in all in for Juan Soto. That doesn't mean don't go all in free agency. I think there are a ton of great players the Mets should be all in on. Maybe just this group of guys isn't going to get it done. And I think maybe it's time to think about that, We'll see what happens.
Again, we will see what happens. Again, like I've said throughout the entire year, it's a wait-and-see year. You never know what's going to happen. Maybe they do catch fire, maybe they don't. But, again, I don't blame people for thinking this early that they should blow this thing up. Because it really has been, as much as you want to say these guys are stars that can contribute, there's been a lot of stretches where they've become liabilities. And, you like to talk about the core of the team or the homegrown pieces or whatever, 0 playoff series wins. That's how we kind of measure this. Whether you want to use an excuse or not, it's just, at the end of the day, if it's not working, it's not working. Now, Andrew, you've been smirking this entire goddamn time, and I have really wanted to punch you through the screen because I hate your face. No, I'm joking. But how do you feel about this? Because I know that you have been very opinionated in the realm of the Mets moving on from a lot of pieces, trading a lot of pieces at the deadline, just blowing this thing up, shaking it up to the deepest core, the deepest apple core. Andrew,
they don't hit enough homers to make the apple joke, but besides the point. Yeah, and that's why even last year everyone was like, well, you got you should have kept Verlander, and especially how in the offseason, you even looked at the deals they were making. Everyone's like, oh, they're gonna be good. And no, and Cohen was smart here and then he let Stearns build. The whole offseason was built to the trade deadline. If you got the luckiness of, hey, Lindor and Nimmo and Jeff McNeil wins a batting title and you're competitive, you have a surplus of prospects from last year. Hey, you can go out and add the 1 or 2 pieces if you need. But then he also brought the safety valve of if the team is the New York Mets and you're going to be, by All-Star break, hell, maybe 12, 13 games under. Maybe not. Maybe, they need a rabbit's foot and they win 15 games in a row. Who knows? But again, if they are that seller, you have, and like we've said, all of Stearns, 90% of Stearns' acquisitions have been a net positive. Yes, they've had your outlier, no GM sitting 1,000. But again, JD Martinez, Adrian House, that's not the first name. Luis Severino, Sean Manaea.
Hey, Joey Wendell, he should be fired alone for that.
He got 2 out of 12 wrong. Okay, he's still batting at 90%. Okay. But again, Severino, the whole entire bullpen minus a certain guy, who all can be flipped at this deadline for, again, you're not going to get superstar prospects, but again, keep adding. And this is what infuriates me about fans. Because when fans hear the term prospects, they think, oh, it's none. They're like, oh, they're going to keep them all. Do what San Diego did before. Obviously San Diego's been iffy, but when they did, they went all in like the Mets kind of did with Matt Kemp and all those guys. Then they said, all right, this team sucks. They blew it up. They keep all those young assets, and they traded a lot of them. They kept, obviously, with Tatis or whatever, but they replenished their farm and built the farm to trade for big league talent in the offseason and whatever. So, yes, I know fans hate, they trade Alonso. Let's say they trade Alonso for 2 double-A right-handed pitchers, which we all know. Everyone's like, oh, how do you trade Pete Alonso? Yada, yada. They need to get younger and cheaper. They are and I was going to bring this up, which Carson's going to yell it because it's a hockey terminology. They are the Pittsburgh Penguins this year. They have a lot of young talent, no young talent, an aging core who are locked up to contracts with a big pending UFA. And up to the trade deadline, was going to decide there, do they keep the big fan favorite star winger or star player with 1 year left? He's going free agent after this year. And what happened? They traded him. They got the assets. They got the bulk return. If the Mets continue this way, that big fan-friendly, gotta love the polar bear. You can't trade the polar bear. God forbid the polar bear jumpsuit sales are going to go down and the children are going to cry. But if you can turn that asset, who could be walking out the door, who the hell knows, and you turn Pete Alonso, let's say, into 4 pieces that maybe don't need to contribute to the Mets, but potentially, hey, in the offseason, they want to trade for Kyle Tucker or Luis Robert, like Rhodes said, or hell, maybe there's someone we're not even thinking of. You turn one asset into multiple assets, and then you could transfer that into whatever star. If it's a pitcher, a reliever, not reliever, but a bat for the future. This team is not going anywhere. They tried it. They went and they did it. Dumpster Dave did his best to try to make a competitive team, and a lot of his stuff has worked, but he's still stuck with Epler's mismanagement, and he's still trying to clean that up. Got to be the dumpster trying to get rid of all the trash. It's not going to happen
without
in 1 year,
angering the fans.
Without angering the fans, exactly.
Without
And
angering
it's
the fans
also-
because he's under a big microscope. I mean, that's yeah.
It's important to acknowledge Pete Alonso can still be part of this future if we trade him. It has happened before. He is represented by Scott Boras, and I would be totally open to that. But as for this team, we need to do. David Stearns is one of the smartest people in baseball. I do think if the Mets are a game and a half out of the wild card, I think we're gonna do probably more of a retool. Like maybe a guy like Quintana goes, maybe a guy like Bader goes. I don't know, but I agree. But with the Epler's deals, with a guy like Starling Marte, who has really cooled off after going on the bereavement list. Edwin Diaz, who it breaks my heart to talk about Edwin, but we'll get into that. There's we're still paying Scherzer, we're still paying Verlander, and there's still we are left off a lot by Billy Epler, and I think that's something that we haven't talked about.
And then I guess this will put the whole thing on. If you wanted to be this competitive right away team, you don't hire David Stearns. You could have picked one of these Jolly Olive retread guys who would have came in, Acuna, Gilbert, Clifford, they'd all be gone, and you would have had, maybe Soto, but probably not because they wanted pitching. But let's say he would have traded for 2 other superstars. You locked in the big contracts, and then the little assets that you had now are gone. But, you look good now. Nobody wants to play the long game. Everyone just wants the constant right now. Well, right now, you've got 2 juggernauts in your own division that you're not going to be better than. So you're not winning this year, next year, and God forbid, the Braves are locked up till 2056. But can you compete for a wild card? Hell, they're being dog water, and they're competing for a wild card right now. You want to continue to stay in this? That's the thing. And all these guys are getting younger, are getting older. Nemo, again, like we said, going to be 32 next season. Lindor, going to be 33 in age, going in year 4 of this deal. Almost halfway done with the contract. Some of these guys are going to be the tail end of their prime. So this core, again, why I said Jeff Meniel should have been shipped to Korea 2 years ago. Pete Alonso probably would have been more likely to be traded last offseason. He would have got more for a year and a half for this future. But again, they wanted to say, we got to keep it for this core because God forbid, unlike the Knicks, we can't win with the power of friendship. That team can. This one can't. But they have stayed to it, and it now needs to be the breaking point where one of them, and McNeil, at some point, he continues. He gets DFA'd, and you're not getting any assets, especially in past trade. You could have gotten value for him. Now his value is absolutely plummeted, and you're maybe getting a 17-year-old lottery ticket shortstop that could piss the people off. It's another shortstop where you could have gotten him for a mid-rotation arm or, Mookie Betts if you want to believe in that. But again, you keep waiting and holding on to the power of friendship and then not shaking this core up for 2.5 years. You wait for all the value to be depressed. And this is where we're at. We're stuck at 21-25. Yes, it's only in mid-May. But again, do you see this? Do you see a world in the next 2 years where you're better than Atlanta? You're better than Philly? You're stuck again. You're stuck in the middle. Like
Mid-purgatory.
and
That's
you
what
don't-
it's been.
yeah.
That really has been what it's been. I mean, they have been a mediocre team for multiple years. And listen, if you want to put the outlier of 2022, bite me. But other than that, if you want to talk about this Mets core, they have not accomplished anything. Individually, they have. Jeff McNeil got his batting title. Pete Alonso has had some home run titles. He's had some home run derby championships. Woo! Francisco Lindor won the Silver Slugger last year. That's individual. That doesn't do anything for this team. That's individual performances. And that is not something that you really can bank on. The main reason as to, with Stearns and everything, he did say this week, he talked about it and said, we're kind of going with the track records. We're going with this, we're that. Because the main reason he said that, he didn't say that just to piss everyone off. I think he just said that because he can't make any moves right now. He can't do anything. I mean, we even had a tweet from Steve Cohen or whatever, which angered everybody as well. Everybody thought he was going to sell or whatever. They can't do anything. It's true. They can't do anything right now. Unless you're going to start selling off pieces in May, you can't do anything. Do I blame anybody for feeling that they should sell off pieces right now? No, I don't. Because it's been a long time coming. At some point, you got to blow it up and realize that this isn't good enough. And if they get to that point at the trade deadline, so be it. Do I wish that Pete Alonso stays? Absolutely. But if the team doesn't win, he's out of here. He's going to go eventually. If they are so, at the end of the day, if they are not in the race, and I've obviously pushed that aside. I think everybody's really pushed that aside, taking it day by day, this wait and see or whatever. But there's a strong possibility that these are the last months that Pete Alonso is a Met. There's this very strong possibility. I think we all know that has been on our mind for a while, but they just keep, pushing through. But if they continue to fall like this and they continue to have these peaks and valleys, win 2, lose 7, win 1 out of 3 of every single series, that's what's going to happen. I'm not trying to say that, Pete Alonso's not at fault, because he's had his struggles as well this year. But if they keep playing like this as a collective unit, it's going to get Pete Alonso traded, whether you like it or not. And that's the reality.
The only ones who are going to stay, contractually,
Yeah.
Nimmo and Lindor can't be moved.
Yeah, they're not going to go anywhere. Yeah.
And someone did mention it. I obviously am keeping Francisco Alvarez. He's our catcher.
Oh, yeah.
For the
I think
foreseeable
somebody
future.
said that, yeah.
But guys like Brett Beatty, unfortunately with Brett Beatty, I kind of saw this season coming.
I can get into that right now. Thank you for that segue.
I'm really not trying to be the Debbie Downer, but with the bat path stuff that's been released, or the bat speed, Brett Beatty has the potential to be a great player. He's just, I think this kind of boils down to the Mets hitting development, which has been just on objectively a much lower level than pretty much every organization in the sport.
And I want to actually get into that right now.
Maybe not better St. Louis, but understandable. The bottom 5.
Wait, you said
it's bottom tier.
Or better?
Okay, I think I'm pretty sure I saw somebody in the chat say, "Oh, it's okay because the White Sox and A's are worse than us."
That's just
Great.
Well, they should be.
But
especially
no
the A's.
disrespect to anybody that
look
said
at
that.
the
But I'm just
A's
saying,
payroll compared to the
my goal as a Mets fan is not to be better than the A's and White Sox. I'd like to win, a World Series before I drop dead. So at the end of the day, let's just talk about this offense, because I want to get into it. Even though they scored 9 runs yesterday, they scored 7 runs today. It's been inconsistent, and there has been plenty of times where it's been just straight up horrendous. It has been so bad at some points that you have had dead people calling in to batting practice and saying, "Wake up." That's how bad the Mets offense has been in the month of May. Let's just say the month of May, okay? Let's talk about the month of May. Let's bring up some numbers here, okay? This is how it has looked in the last month. Now, listen, it may be a little bit fluctuated as compared to what they did the last two games, but I don't think that really that changes much. You have them basically in the bottom 5 in almost any category as a team. You have them in mid-purgatory in walk rate and K rate because, we can't strike out here and we have to walk. And one base outcomes are so goddamn important. And then obviously the two guys who have really been highlighted as some of the main pieces for a long time on this team, Lindor and McNeil, really, really struggling. Alonso has picked it up a little bit. He hasn't been the best, obviously, overall, but he's been better. Of course, Brandon Nimmo has been the sunshine of everybody's life this season so far. He started off slow, but he's really heated up and, just the incredible hitter that he's become. JD Martinez has been very solid. DJ Stewart's been good in pinches, of course.
I do want to say, JD Martinez's WRC plus this month is improved to 155.
Is it? Okay,
Yeah,
I don't
it's
know. Maybe
155.
it's because it is fluctuated because again, this is 18 plate appearances before last game. So this was made 2 days ago. So my
I think he's
apologies
running
for the
line.
technicalities, but
He's
I
definitely
will
accurate.
say it's like Lindor has been struggling, but I will say that putting him in the leadoff spot, I think that it's definitely he's looked like he has had more competitive ABs as compared to what he was. Before that. But again, this is 2 games against one of the worst teams in all of baseball, the worst team in all of baseball, possibly. And, you just really never really know. But, with the hitting, and listen, somebody said this in the chat, and we're going to go off of this to lead us in here. Ken said this earlier when he said that the Mets have the worst pitching and hitting coaches. They are absolutely dreadful. And listen, I don't know if you follow me on Twitter, you probably know my opinion on this. I'm going to push aside the pitching because I think that there's definitely more situations where it can be better. I'm not banking on Kodai Senga being fully healthy this year, but I will say, this pitching staff, and we'll get into it as well, but the main point is they miss Francisco Alvarez. They 100% do. And that's just mainly established. But in terms of hitting, I don't even know where to start, to be honest. The hitting core in general, let me just say off the top of my head, and you guys can add to it however you want. You can jump in as much because we don't have any delay anymore. We fixed the audio so we can go a little crazy here. The Mets have a really tough time with maximizing hitting talent. Whether they do actually succeed or have a good stretch, there still is a strong possibility that they could be even better, and the Mets just ignore that entire possibility. And we all know those hitting approaches that do well and everything that, me and Rode, we preach this stuff all the time or whatever. But when you look at it, even if the Mets have guys with good expected numbers, good quality of contact numbers, can they actually maximize that? And my answer would be no. And especially, I'm not throwing them completely under the... Yeah, I am. I'm not going to throw him completely under the bus, but the man running the hitting coordination at the major league level, even though it's from top to bottom, it's been a mess. He does not prioritize quality of contact, and it's very, very clear that he doesn't. Because the Mets offense is just, it's peaks and valleys like we've talked about. It's either it's good one day and then it's bad another. I understand, that they're playing good pitchers or bad pitchers, but something has to change. And I think that if you want to make this last run at Pete Alonso being here long term, the last move that you have to make, the last hurrah, the last push has to be Eric Chavez's job. Because I've talked about his unsustainable approach for a long time, and it's all coming true. And to be honest, I personally think it's even worse than I expected. Frank, I'll go to you. I mean, how do you feel about this offense in general? It's frustrating. It's ridiculous how bad it is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not good. I mean, I think that what really stands out to me is I look at a guy, and of course I'm going to point to him just because he comes to my mind because of his numbers, but someone like Harrison Bader, who all things considered has been better than I expected offensively, like in the total. But and you look at his average, like, oh, he's hovering around like 280. Like, okay, he's actually being productive. But then you look at the OPS and it's like mid 600s, and it's like because it's a bunch of singles. And we've talked about it so many times, but it's like when you watch the other teams just steal all over the Mets, and the Mets have gotten like a little better, like they're stealing a couple bases here or there. I think that's why it's not sustainable. And that's where the whole, like we talk about good pitcher, bad pitcher thing really comes to place, because like when you're facing a pitcher who's struggling, it's like, sure, 4 singles in a row, 2 runs, fine.
That's
but
how
then
it feels. That is how it feels. And I'll add to it. Sorry for interrupting, but I mean, I will add it to here. It's just how it feels is the Mets go by their book, and that's it. That's the only book. There's no improvising. There's no quick thinking. There's nothing. Like there really just isn't. If the Mets want to go by this one base outcome, they're going to need guys with speed. They're going to need guys with that plus speed tool. And the main reason why we say that, and again, I say this all the time, in an uppercut league, when you have a lot of guys swinging for the fences, a lot of guys getting over the ball against high-profile velocity, because it's going to continue, especially with the new pitchers that are coming in. I mean, you know, those Paul Skeens guys, they're pretty good. In an uppercut league where power beats power, you're going to see a lot of double plays. So unless you take second and take away the double play, it's not going to be efficient, productive whatsoever for your offense. And that's what the Mets don't do. A guy gets on base, well, we'll just sit here until we can move, until the ball gets put in play again, and magically is taken over by faith, trust, and pixie dust. And every single thing happens our way, and that's how we're going to do it. And how I look at the Mets offense is the best production that they get is let's just wait for the defense to screw up. That's it. Let's just wait for the defense to screw up, and then let's just wait for Lindor and Alonso to bail us out, even though they barely get any pitches to hit because they have no protection, even though, you know, JD Martinez has done that well so far. You know, let's just wait for the top-heavy part of the lineup to go do it, and then when they don't, let's just roll over and die. That's basically how I see the Mets offense, and it consistently looks like that, just day in, day out. Frank, I'll go back to you. I'm sorry I just completely cut you off there, but go ahead.
No, it's no problem, because another guy says that to me. We talked about he's having a really good week, and that's JD Martinez. If JD Martinez is stringing together a bunch of singles and, you know, he's batting over 300, whatever, unfortunately with his age, it doesn't really matter, because it's so hard to get him around the bases to cross home plate with the guys batting after him. That's a lot of wasted hits. I mean, that's the other thing, is that we're starting to see a little more power. Like, there's been some doubles. He had a couple of home runs. So that's getting better. And it's like, if JD is going to be effective, they're going to need him to be hitting extra base hits, because if Lindor's not getting on it from him, if he's not getting on it from him, those singles aren't driving in runs. You know, so I think that you just have a lot of these guys like DJ Stewart draw a ton of walks, but get him around the bases. Not easy. I mean, you know, the catchers are not giving you more than one base outcome. You know, McNeil's not giving you more than one base outcome. You know, same thing with Beatty. Like, it's so many guys that it's the times that they do hit, it's singles, but it's like you need so much. And then when these other teams are hitting the home runs, like they catch up to your. It was like with the Marlins the Saturday when Josh Bell
erased all that work, instantly erased.
Yeah, it's like you hit Josh Bell's a 3-run homer, and it's like in a couple batters they did what it took you like innings to do. You know, so I think that's kind of where we talk about the whole sustainability approach. It just gets very frustrating when it's just like you see, like, and we talked about it so many times, but it's like it's so many of the same player all on one team, and it just hasn't worked out. And, you know, I think at the time, like, the old school person in me didn't agree with it. But the 2015 team, when they got very all or nothing, and you look at guys like Curtis Granderson and these other guys who were just out here, and even Darno at the time, like they were hitting home runs, and it was great starting pitching, and they went to the World Series. And after that, you see so many other teams like Houston where it's like home runs, great pitching, World Series. Like Arizona, like it's such a common thing. And then with this team, it's like you have a bunch of guys just in singles and just it's just not the same approach that you see like these elite level teams do. It just makes it harder to compete. Like you said, in this power versus power league, just this game, you're just not seeing it. They don't really have an identity because, like you said, they don't have the speed to be a singles and walks team, but then they don't have a power to be a modern team. So they're really just kind of stuck in limbo. And it's like you just have a bunch of that's why I say just not sustainable offense on a daily basis.
Yeah, even if you're talking about pure hitting tools or hitting skills, you can just look at it from a production standpoint, like what you just said. If somebody is getting on base and have absolutely no speed, what good is it? I mean, really, what good is it? Because if somebody gets on base, gets a single, a one base outcome, all it does is set up the double play. Again, in this uppercut league. If you hate the uppercut, again, go to the pitchers and say, hey, can you stop throwing 99 miles an hour? Thanks. I really appreciate that. That would be really nice of you. They're not going to do that. Even though they probably should bring back the velocity because they're going to die if they don't. But you have stuff in this game that, you know, it's not just velocity. It's just overall stuff. It's overall high-profile stuff that you're going to run into. You can't always face Braxton Garrett every single time. You can't always face Bailey Falter. You can't always face
Sixto Sanchez.
Sixto Sanchez. You can't always face that. You're not going to face that. And the only way to beat that power, to beat that high-profile stuff, is with power. And if you don't, you're going to have to do it with winning in those margins, which they don't have. They don't have guys like that. They have a few. Marte, Bader, Taylor. They could steal, but then you also don't see them sending any runners anyway. And that's the other thing. Like, they see other teams beat them this way, and they're like, you know what? Let's just ignore it. Let's close our eyes because it's too painful, and not look at what's going on in front of us, and let's just go by our book. That's what pisses me off.
Yeah, I think with the rule changes, it should be easier to steal, especially a guy like Starling Marte. Like I Bader. Like I expect more, and I just think that with how much the offense has struggled, and like you say, with the double plays and things like that, you have to be more aggressive. I mean, at that point, it's like you have to generate your own offense because the hitters aren't doing it. So it's like the guys on the bases need to do it. And another example of like, you know, the model franchise, you look at the Dodgers, those guys, most of their lineup, at any point, you fear this ball could be going over the fence and it's a entirely different ball game. I mean, you just go top to bottom. It's like you just have all these guys. Teoscar Hernandez, he's top 5 in the league in home runs. So, you know, and obviously you have the 3 MVPs and you have your Will Smith and your Max Muncy. And it's like so many guys that like you make a mistake, it's like, boom, you just go on the fence. You can make a bunch of mistakes to Jeff McNeil, and that ball still ain't going over the wall. You know what I mean? So it's like there is no fear. You know, the way that, you know, pitchers approach the team is so different than a lot of teams. Like the Braves, I mean, there's so many guys where it's like, oh, if I mess this up, Matt Olson, Acuna, Albies, like that's going over the wall. You don't have that same fear with the Mets. I mean, it's like it feels so rare. Like, I mean, what's the last time a lot of these guys hit home runs? I mean, Taylor hit off the wall. That was great, but it's like Bader and some of these other guys, it feels like a miracle. Other than Nimmo, which again seems crazy to think.
Oh yeah,
compared to years past, that, you know, we had the conversation in the offseason about Nimmo moving at the Leo spot. We're like, me and Andrew thought it could happen. Carson was like, no way. The second month of the season, Nemo's already out of the lead.
3-hole Nimmo, baby.
Like,
love the move. Love the move.
It's crazy. Like just the way that we envision the team as far as like what you expect, you just get something totally different. And that's the Mets in a nutshell. But still, I mean, just watching it happen so early in the season, I just thought it was really interesting.
You just really have to pray. It's a wing and a prayer. That's how it kind of works with the Mets production. And I'm tired of praying. I'm tired of doing that. Find something that works. This doesn't work. it doesn't work. And whether it does work once or twice in the week, it's not going to work for the other 5 days. It's not efficient. Whether it worked once or worked twice back-to-back days, it's not going to work every single time. And that's what they kind of, for some reason, they don't understand that. Now, obviously, with the Mets, like I just said, they don't prioritize this quality of contact, which is so aggravating because it's the best way to get those efficient results. And another thing that makes it even more frustrating, obviously, is the fact that they pretty much prioritize quantity of contact, which is so counterproductive these days that, you know, the Mets, they don't, every single pitch that you see offered to them, 9 out of the 10 of them, they do the wrong thing with it. They do the incorrect thing. And you see a, first pitch strike right down the middle, easy pitch. You see your pitch. No, let's just take that. Let's just stare at, let's stare at 2 strikes, and then we'll swing at every single thing. Just try to make contact, minimal contact. Doesn't matter if it's good contact or not. Does that sound familiar, Frank?
The amount
sound
of
familiar?
pop-ups for runners
You know who
on
I'm
base-
talking about?
Yeah, no, the amount of
But it's
pop-ups
like-
for runners on base is just aggravating. I mean, it's like you said, it's like they're not striking out, but they're not actually doing productive things that's going to lead to run scoring. And at the same point, is that like,
And when they do strike out, they're uncompetitive swings anyway.
yeah, exactly. Oh,
Or they're just
God.
looking at strike 3.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like, it's still not efficient.
Well,
Whether you
Alonso had
think,
one today, slider down the middle,
Yeah.
strike 3 looking. I mean,
yeah, just look at it. Just look at it. And listen, I think that, quality of contact is very interesting because, you can look at it, through, now I think that you can do it a lot better with xWOBA, obviously, with expected weighted on base average, of course. You also have hit probability with, expected batting average, and base probability with, expected slugging. And if you actually do look at the Mets in these differences, most of them are in
that's a lot
solid
of numbers for an old man to
percentiles.
look at.
But like I said,
He said, I
But
should
like
do
I
to
said,
read.
again,
Goddamn.
can they maximize that? I don't think they can. And that's the problem with how I look at it. And obviously, Brandon Nimmo, first of all, let's just talk about, let me take this off the screen. Can we talk about how incredible of a hitter Brandon Nimmo has become in his career? I mean,
With the stomach
seriously, just a diamond in the rough, really. Really just a diamond in the rough.
I want to
Because
say, like with Nimmo, it's like, I wish he did swing at first pitches a lot more in the leadoff spot.
Yeah, of
like,
course.
obviously we're talking about, he's more of a power hitter now. We can move him down the lineup, which I think is great. I think the offense is going to perform a little bit better because of that, but because he's great with the wrists. But at the same time, like in the leadoff spot, like maybe it's his mindset. That's a big opportunity for him. I think Nimmo can hit 30 homers. I think is more the amount of balls that come off this bat that are at 111 and
I
elevated.
mean, if you're in
are
top,
quite impressive.
if you're in top 10%, like if you're in top 10% of quality of contact, you can do it if you square it up properly. I mean, he's obviously gone to that philosophy of pulling fly balls, which, he's been able to make himself into a 20 to 25 home run threat. But obviously, nobody else in this lineup wants to think about doing that or whatever. Like, to be honest, the ideal approach, the most efficient approach is here, which is kind of sad. DJ Stewart, he has a very efficient approach. He doesn't swing
He's
at anything
really
outside of the
good.
zone.
He's really
he
good,
swings,
man. Like,
and is there swing and miss with it? But he sees pitch, he sees the pitch, and he prioritizes quality of contact. He's turned into a very, very solid hitter in this lineup. Obviously, it's been in pinches. He's not an everyday player, but Nimmo is the same way as well. And, there's a few flaws that he obviously has. If he gets on base, he's not going to be a stolen base threat. We know that he just doesn't steal. And that's one of the main gripes, of course, as to why, people would like to take him out of the leadoff spot. And I understand that, of course. I personally like guys who can hit extra base hits from the leadoff spot. I like guys who can hit extra base hits in general.
Lindor
but,
gives
you
you
know,
that the leadoff
yeah.
spot regardless. So I mean, when he's
Yeah,
at
true.
his best, maybe not right now, but like I
that's the
think.
version.
Well, I think.
I think to be honest, one base outcomes are obviously better from Lindor than they are from Nimmo, because Lindor obviously can be a stolen base threat. Not like they're going to
Yeah.
send him or anything. But if Lindor gets a leadoff walk, Lindor gets a leadoff single, you feel a little bit more confident of taking away the double play for Pete Alonso in that 2 spot.
I mean,
So-
I'm happy Pete's back in the 2 spot. I hope that's permanent. I think he hits
absolutely.
best
It
there.
needs
He
to stay
always
that
has.
way. Yeah, it needs
but
to
like
stay
with
that way.
Lindor,
Yeah.
if I guess we haven't really talked about Lindor because like I see his head getting, his head is getting put on a spike from Mets Twitter. That's what it feels like, and it's like I think that the amount of times it's paid off to be patient, especially it's May 19th. Like Stern said it. I'm very confident at the end of the year Lindor is gonna have another Lindor-like season. I think he's been incredibly unlucky this year. And, there has been some poor approaches, especially really early in the season. But, like he was getting on a really hot streak a couple of weeks ago. And even then, like there were a lot of balls that were finding gloves. He's had worse starts to the season as a Met, and he still ended up an above average hitter. I think he's a player we should be blessed to have. And I think in the leadoff spot, that's a really great guy to have up there.
I don't know. I think he's a bum, to be honest. If you ask all of Mets Twitter, I mean, to be honest, that's just kind of how it is with Lindor. I mean, he's getting paid the big bucks, so he needs to do exactly what they want every single time, or they're going to go after him. That's just kind of the prerequisite at this point with Francisco Lindor. We've gone through it already. But, it's really hard to look at this offense and see it as a sustainable piece. Because again, yes, they can kill bad pitching, but they can go up against these high profile pieces, on the mound that, obviously to show sustainability would be how it works in the playoffs. And we saw how it worked in the playoffs in 2022, but water under the bridge, 101 wins, whip-de-doo. Let's all hold hands and sing Kumbaya. But if you were to look at the Mets offense right now, do you have confidence against them like a guy like Tyler Glasnow?
Well,
You
we
have
still wouldn't
confidence
when we faced them.
against a guy like Paul Skeens? Against a guy like, I don't know, even Chris Sale? Like, do you even trust them against guys with actual high-profile stuff? No.
You saw they faced Nola.
Nola and Max Fried getting no hit and perfect game.
And Nola's declined a lot as a pitcher, but, he still knows how to pitch. He's a veteran. He's been in this game for a while.
Professional pitcher.
And
Professional pitcher.
He's a professional pitcher. He's not a thrower. So, I think that, do you see them doing any of this in the postseason, even if they get there? No. And that's why the approach needs to change. It just needs to change. Because to be honest, when I look at this lineup, you can maximize a lot of power. Except for this one guy that's one of the pictures in the bottom middle. Other than that, I think you can maximize a lot of power. You've seen power outbreaks from Bader before. We've seen power outbreaks from Tyrone Taylor when he was in Milwaukee. We've seen power we've seen even power outbreaks from Marte, which I don't think he's really capable of that as of right now, but he still is one of those top 25% guys. Like, if you look at Marte, the quality of contact from him, it's not bad. Like, it ain't bad. It ain't terrible. So maybe you could possibly get 15 to 20 homers from him at best, but the Mets just don't know how to maximize that. And that's the problem, that they have continued to just weather forever. And it's why it continues just to be a pitcher's franchise, and the offense just completely comes out of premium. That's how I kind of look at it, and it sucks. It really does suck. Ibby chiming in here from Till Mets Do Us Part, one of our buddies. Magic McNeil versus a 98-mile-an-hour splinker, which I believe is a splitter sinker. What is that? Is that the thing that Durant throws or whatever? The splinker,
And
whatever.
Skeens too.
He would turn to ash in the box. Yeah, I mean, he would probably look like a cartoon character. I'm not gonna lie, like he just disintegrate. I mean, like that. That's like, do you feel like is there any pitcher, that has like any worth of like? even at like a mid rotation piece that you're like, oh, we're guaranteed to hit this guy. We're absolutely going to go after this guy. No, every time expecting that there is a possibility that this team gets no hit for 8 innings. And then there's a possibility where maybe they attack early and then that pitcher adjusts and they completely die. And then the pitching gives it up. And, like, it's a constant obstacle of how I see how this team plays baseball. And for the offense, that's one of the main issues. Obviously, there's pitching issues, of course, but that's not really at full strength as of right now. So I'm not completely judging it. I talked about the offense as to where I want to judge it when JD Martinez is here. And then I might start to panic. JD Martinez is here. I'm pissed. I'm getting pissed. I really am getting pissed. And listen, I'm saying this after they scored 17 runs in the last 2 games. Well, listen, who were they facing? Sixto Sanchez, who can't even reach 95 miles an hour anymore and just dumps shit over the plate and hits batters. And then Braxton Garrett, who's been banged up recently and throws about, 91 miles an hour? I mean, come on.
Good pitcher.
And then they face Luzardo, who's in the high 90s, who has good stuff. At his very best, his 99th percentile, this guy's an ace. And obviously he turned into an ace because he exposed what the Mets aren't able to do, and that is quality of contact. They never do it. They just never do it. And that is what is really, really frustrating. It's outdated. It's completely outdated. That's the main reason. I didn't like the Eric Chavez hire from the very beginning, and now it's coming to fruition. That now it is showing how unsustainable that 2022 team was. Right here. That's how it looks. I promise you, this is the exact offensive approach. This is the exact thing. And I have a comparison as to what I got to find it or whatever. Maybe another stream. But this is the exact same team. They're just the unsustainable approach and the unsustainable philosophies are just finally catching up to them.
I'm surprised that obviously Chavez, but even Hefner too, that they have survived in the organization as long as they have, considering the way Steve Cohen is, as far as like he is looking for a certain outcome. And when things aren't going right, he's going to do something about it. And I think for Stearns to come in and just kind of leave these philosophies the way that they are, even if it's something he doesn't agree with, I just find very surprising. And it's like, if you brought Stearns in to run the team, you let him run the team. You let him pick his guys. And maybe he got to do that with Mendoza, but there's only so much Carlos Mendoza can do when it comes to
it could be inheriting. It could be just an inheritance thing where he's like, okay, I want to keep this in the comfort level of the players, because like just to give them what they were at their best. Like some have been good under Jeremy Hefner, some have been not. Some guys have had career years under Eric Chavez in 2022. So they're like, okay, let's do that.
Well, personally, I don't really know what the whole deal against Jeremy Hefner is right now. I think he's done a pretty fantastic job this year, honestly. I think the amount of arms that we're seeing thrive and bounce back, like Severino, like Lopez, like Reed Garrett.
I think
why is
he's been
for his
fine.
head? Like
I think he's been fine.
Okay, but
I think he's been fine this year.
Would you rather
really
Severino have a 6.5 ERA and like, give up a home run every 2 batters? Like, I mean, look.
The walks are an issue. The walks are absolutely an issue.
They're an issue, but like they're not giving up homers.
And every walk turns into a double, to be honest, because they can't throw out runners. But I'm not going after Jeremy Hefner this year. I think that he's been fine. I don't think he's been completely fantastic. Individually, a lot of guys have definitely had bounce back seasons. They have been good. In terms of pitching. Has it been a headache to watch the pitching? Yes, because they've definitely put themselves into a lot of sticky situations. But I'm not going after Hefner as of right now. The guy that really irks me is Eric Chavez, and I think that we all know that I can't deal with this guy. I really can't. because it's really clear what his approach is, and it does not display anything. I think that a lot of Mets fans see 101 wins from 2022, and they saw it, they won 101 games. But if you replay that season, a lot went right. That usually doesn't go right for the Mets. A lot went on that most of the Mets offense, again, was waiting for the defense to screw up and have Lindor and Alonso bail them out. And that's the same offense right now. And that's the whole thing that I talk about with this, just a sustainable approach, a sustainable philosophy. It's not there anymore. People wonder, did something change? No, nothing changed. This is just the exact same approach that doesn't work. And they did not adjust at all. This is the same thing that they did from 2022. They didn't adjust at all. They have the new bases. They have the new they have the shift going away.
That's what I was going to say. Is that you have had so many rule changes that it's a different
and they
game.
Still didn't adjust.
Yeah, you can't just compare what happened in 22 and said, "Oh, those rules just automatically going to translate the next couple of years." I mean, because the only thing that works, no matter what rules you have, who's standing on this side, who's standing on that side, hit the ball over the wall. No one's catching that. You can't make any rules to catch that ball. So if you're getting all these, like we talked about, hits against the shift, cheap ground balls, low exit velo that worked time and time again, made McNeil a batting title. It did all these wonderful things. Marte had a phenomenal year. If they are changing the rules and all of a sudden these things aren't falling anymore and you can't get the ball over the wall, well then, like even with Lindor, like there's always a glove there. So, I mean, it's the fact of like the game has changed, but you haven't changed with it. The game is now, you look at the young teams, again, I go to a team like Arizona, like Texas, like these young guys who are just flying around the bases. I mean, think of the year Corbin Carroll had. He was a perfect example of a guy who fit this new game of baseball so perfectly. Mets don't have that guy. They don't make any changes. They don't move. They don't evolve with the game as it's evolving. And it's like you've seen, like we said, the same core with a lot of different versions of baseball, and still you're seeing a lot of the bad results.
Yeah, I think that at one point you got to realize that enough is enough. And this is my problem with the Mets. They just really, they base things off of results. They don't base things off of trends or, do they see things? They just have not been innovative enough to catch up with these other teams that are just better than them in every single way. You saw, like, let's just say Pete Alonso goes 0 for 5 in the 2-hole. You wouldn't be surprised if they just move him out of there because they're like, oh, this didn't work yesterday, so it's not going to work the next day. Or this worked last night, so this is going to work again. You have to play this situation. You have to play the matchups. You have to play these situations of efficient things that go on in this game. And the Mets are just not in tune with that. And I'm interested to see if they can continue, to build up this just organization as a whole, with this whole hitting approach. Again, it's just, you look at these other teams of what they're doing and you're like, okay, well, that's just not our style. We're just going to roll over and die. Well, you're going to lose if you do that. So it's either shit or get off the pot at this point. And they got to make a change. They do have to make a change. And like I've said, in terms of this offense, the last hurrah, if you want to keep Pete Alonso here long term, if they're as serious as they are, apparently, maybe Bob Nightingale says something else. But if they are serious about keeping Alonso here, if they are serious about being a competitive team this year, you fire Eric Chavez. You get rid of him. And I know it's hard to believe because in 2022, he was so goddamn good. He was a genius. They actually were building a statue for him instead of Tom Seaver actually in 2022. That's how good he was. And then they had to change it because they lost in the playoffs. That's how good that that offense was. Everyone was mesmerized by it. I wasn't, but everybody was mesmerized by it. Anybody that saw that offense in 2022, I hate to burst the bubble. Again, I'm just saying this. Anybody that saw that offense in 2022 saw massive issues, but they won 101 games, so it's not like anybody cared. Like, that's the problem. That was the problem. And now you have this complete fantasy of 2022 where everything went so well. What changed? Nothing changed. This is the same goddamn team. This is the same approach that they've had since the beginning. It's just not sustainable whatsoever. 2022 has now become the new 2019, where everything went great. Everything went great in 2019. Well, guess what? They didn't make the playoffs in 2019. 2022 did great. They didn't win a playoff series.
And they didn't make the playoffs because of the next guy we're going to talk about.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't make. Yeah, thank you for that transition. But before we get into that, this is obvious. This is a comment from Ken as well, because let's answer this. To be honest, let's get into the great man Jeff McNeil.
Well,
why is he playing every day?
So here's the thing. They DFA'd Wendell, and they now said that your backup shortstop is Brett Beatty, a man who has not played shortstop, is your backup shortstop. Again,
hey, look,
can
Vientos will play.
You call up Iglesias? I mean,
Luke Ritter, anyone?
So
like,
the 9th spot is obviously designated for the catcher right now with Alvarez out. Nito and Narvaez can't hit a lick. If they actually do something, it's by some kind of miracle. Even though Nimmo got a good batting average rate. But if you're looking at it from the top of, if you are looking at it from one part of the lineup, Alvarez probably slides in at 5 at best, right? Behind JD Martinez at the cleanup position or whatever. That leaves the 9th spot. Is it so bad to just... Is it so bad to think that maybe you should just bench Jeff McNeil and call up somebody like Jose Iglesias? Or call up somebody like Mike Brasso?
Not Iglesias. Please, no. Like, no. Call
well, I mean, I'm just saying it's like... I get it. I get it. It's, again, but he can give you some defensive value as well.
No,
and listen,
no,
I understand a lot.
No, he can't. Dude, last time he played shortstop in the majors, he was a minus 22 defensive run save guy. I'm not bringing up Jose Iglesias.
He's not really a shortstop, but he's a guy who plays around the field, is right-handed, and he has an infamous playoff home run.
Okay.
So...
I respect Jose Iglesias.
He also beat the crap out of James McCann, so we're homies, all right?
Jose Iglesias would hit worse than Jeff. I'm 100% sure he would hit way worse than Jeff.
I don't think that's possible. I don't.
Totally
I really
possible.
don't.
With this league average offense, Jeff is actually like a 90 bat right now. Like, I think you need to realize that. Like, look, I'm not a fan of Jeff. I would have traded him in the offseason. But, like, if we're going to call up, in my view, if we're going to call up another infielder, it can't be Jose Iglesias. Like, come on. Think deeper.
From the 9th spot, though? Like, let's be real. From the 9th spot?
Who are you calling up, then?
Luke Ritter. He's a way better hitter, at least in my opinion. Way better.
Mike Brasso? They just signed him.
No.
Mike Brasso?
The day Jeff McNeil dies is the day that one of the prospects come up. And I'm not talking Iglesias, and I'm not talking... Ritter, as much as I love, it's either it's one of the midgets. It's Acuna, it's Jeff.
Whoa.
That's who comes up. We're not going to just send Jeff McNeil to bring an older, worse version of Jeff McNeil.
We can't cut this stuff out anymore. You can't be saying
that's
shit
not
like
in
that.
raw. I didn't. That's not in raw. Midget, little people, fine.
You said it again, bro.
We'll call them a little people. One of the two. Because at least with Acuna now, he's playing center field.
Mets Weekly, why don't you do anything live anymore?
That's why, exactly, because it's done. It's not
Acuna's
fun.
a 56 WRC plus in AAA.
Yeah.
That is not
he's not good.
Ideal.
But my thing is, if you're getting rid of Jeff McNeil, it's a potential game. Yes. Do I love Luis Angel Acuna? No. Do I love Jet Williams? No. But I'm going to call up a guy.
Luis Angel Acuna can steal you a bag if he gets on.
So
if he gets on, he can bring some speed and which
it's value from the 9th spot.
Can Luke Ritter do that?
No, he just hits homers. But the team needs to get younger. If we're getting rid of a 32-year-old washed up gerbil, I'm not calling up a 35-year-old washed up Jose Iglesias. I'm getting younger. I'm not getting older. So again, Luke Ritter can be, the meme that he is. It's either Acuna, Jet, or that's about. Again, there's really no other shortstop. Again, if you want to do that, again, you're just putting another. Here's a Band-Aid for a bleeding wound. Here's a small little Band-Aid of Jose Iglesias. Is he probably more valuable than Jeff McNeil? Sure. But again, it's not that big of an upgrade. I'm moving. Again, I don't like Jose Iglesias. They both suck. So again, my point is, if I'm gonna suck, I'd rather suck with a younger
put in the 9
asset.
spot. Put somebody in the 9 spot that can be a stolen base threat.
I mean, sure.
Like,
then that's
what I'm saying.
That's the point.
I mean, I don't know if Jose Iglesias got the wheels anymore, but I'm just saying it's like.
The
what I'm saying is like,
if you're gonna call up someone who is like, Andrew, I agree. I mean, can we be honest? Like, if we call up Jose Iglesias, what are the chances his OPS would look like 510 in 2 weeks?
Again,
we're the Mets, man. Like, his OPS would be 2-2 probably.
But hold on. Did you see his OPS in spring training?
In spring training, he did have a good spring training.
Exactly.
But again, here's the point: the team's going to be bad either way. It's going to be bad with Jose Iglesias playing second base or Jeff McNeil. If I'm going to be bad, I'd rather have the guy who has some upside. Yes, do I think it's amazing upside?
Oh, I get it.
But I'm going with Luis Angel Acuna over, again, a guy whose his most infamous moment is taking James McCann in the face. That's it, and make a cool couple of web gems.
He was an all-star.
Okay, so was Joey Wendell, and look how that worked out. The point is...
Joey Wendell's great.
Oh, you know all-stars don't matter.
All-stars never matter. The point is they need to get younger. So stop trying to go, this guy. It's the kids. Focus on the kids. None of this, patchwork, 27-year-old Luke Ritter. No. If the day Jeff McNeil dies, either when it's Jet or Acuna. Yes, Jet's hurt, so it's not going to be Jet. As much as, again, we don't like Luis Angel Acuna, he's the guy. What are you doing?
I'm fine with it batting 9th. I really am.
Again,
I'm fine with it batting 9th.
And that's
coming
what he
up
fits.
Making it younger. Obviously, I get it. I understand that. The only problem with that, again, and that's my only fear, the Mets who just love this results-based crap and never go by, actually things that, like, they're never one step ahead of anything. Let's say Luis Angel Acuna has a 2-hit game. They're going to move him up in the lineup. Like, I just know that they're going to end up doing that because, what's stopping them? Marte? The part-time of Bader or the part-time of Taylor? Is Jeff McNeil stopping them from moving him up in the lineup? Like, that's what I mean. But, again, that is a fear after a fear. But Luis Angel Acuna, if he continues to hit like he has the last week or two or whatever, if he keeps going, get him up here. Why not? I mean, what is he, 23, 22? I mean, he's not young. He's there, like he's at the age where you get called up. See what you got from him.
He has
it can't be
WRC
worse.
plus in AAA. Like, no, I'm sorry. Like I know we are frustrated with Jeff McNeil, but like, this is where sometimes you can run into really impulsive.
I'm not. Here's the thing, Ro. I'm not frustrated with Jeff McNeil. Here's the thing. I'm not frustrated with.
Like, Acuna would probably be, like, respect him. I'm not
be
completely out on him. He would probably be the worst hitter in Major League Baseball if he came up now. Like, we can't, like...
I think we have some guys on the team that can give
we got some guys already on the roster.
I mean, like, Tomas need... Like,
no, he will be bad. He's a bad hitter. He can't hit. No, he cannot hit.
Acuna right now
cannot
be in the majors. Like, I like him. I like parts of his game.
You're right about that.
I just don't think...
But I'm not.
I would rather call up Jet Williams right now than Acuna. Like Jet Williams at least has the discipline. Jet Williams will get on base even now.
Is he even healthy? Is he back?
No, he's still hurt. No,
but when he comes
still
back.
out. Okay. Well, the thing about this is that it's not that I'm frustrated with Jeff McNeil. I've been done with Jeff McNeil for multiple years. Like, I'm done. I'm done with him.
It's tough when the guy who has the most potential is hurt, and that's Ronnie Mauricio. That's the other part of the equation.
That's the biggest hit.
He's
It
our
is
third
the-
baseman next year. I think that's
Well,
quite
yeah,
When you
that's
look
the
at
thing is that you
when
have
you
to
look
I
at
don't
second
see us
base
going-
and shortstop,
yeah.
Gleyber
when you
Torres
look
is
at
a
second
good
base and
is a
third
good guy
base,
too. I
it's
think
brutal.
Gleyber
You have
Torres
to
could be
decide
here
which
next
position
year.
you're putting him, and then what you're going to do. I mean, do you have better luck in maybe finding a third baseman and just putting Mauricio at second? I mean, I think that's got to be one of the other.
And the
things
other thing that
I
does
would-
fear
is that you could
the
go
other thing that
kinda
does fear me, of course,
yeah.
is ACL. He's gonna. It's gonna take a while for him to recover from that.
Well,
Like, yeah, he'll be healthy, he'll be playing, but you might not get the 100% Ronnie. That can go through that ceiling. I mean, obviously, he still hasn't proven so much at the major league level. We saw a lot. We saw a lot of good strides from him. He was very impressive, but it's gonna be a while until he builds it back up again. So.
All right.
Yeah, it's
Who-
probably
we'll
best
see.
if we don't if we let him
Oh
rest
God,
the whole
Frank!
year.
Where-
Don't start yelling at people now again.
Where's the Alonso excuses? We all admit that he's struggling and not playing well, and there's no excuse. So I don't know no one's apologized yet. So I don't know who you're talking about on this channel, but you're not watching the right thing. So
I think we all agree Pete could definitely be playing better.
he could be better. There's no excuse. He is struggling. He's playing bad. We're all
I
in
think at
agreement.
the end of the day, we all
All right.
do
So for those
agree
audio
we
listeners,
trust his track record. And
because Frank, he went out there. Somebody said that we are all on this channel that a bunch of Alonso apologists, even though there was a huge part of this stream about a week where we accepted that there's a possibility that Alonso's gone.
Well, I've already said that
And-
last year, but that's just me.
Listen,
Did you
Listen,
not hear
if-
that
if-
everyone talking about trading him for like a half hour? We wouldn't make excuses if we were not trading the guy. Like,
I think
we
we
can
trade him.
we know what Pete's faults are. We know
He's
what
going to
Pete's
look
faults
amazing
are.
in Baltimore. I mean, I've been saying it for about a year and a half. He's going to fit well in that DH spot, and probably hitting between Adley and Gunnar, and he'll hit like 95 homers like JD did with the Diamondbacks and win the World Series in Baltimore. So
Dude,
he's going to look
Pete
great.
and- he's on our
Pete
team.
and
We still want him to do
Severino
well.
to the
right?
Orioles for Kobe Mayo.
If we, that'd be shown.
Listen,
Kobe-
I do that.
anyway.
I've strayed away from the Alonso.
we can
Just
take
because
Jackson
I'm not
Holiday.
talking about trading
He's so
Alonso
bad,
does not
man.
mean that I'm not frustrated
Alonso
with
for
him.
Jackson
That's how
Holiday.
I will say it.
Yeah.
Right?
I think
Like,
I think Pete is a great hitter. I think he's fantastic actually, but I just think he isn't really he's just not really showing it right now, but
yeah.
I still want him for the long term, but I do think it's the responsible thing to do would be to trade him at the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, if they're not competitive, they're not competitive, and that's the trend that they're going at right now. And again, it's still early. You never know. But like I've said, one last hurrah. It's got to be Eric Chavez. The one last hurrah. If you're going to take that, it's got to be Eric Chavez who goes out. And Jeremy Barnes probably has to go with him
Yeah, they're both-
because they kind of were the package deal from the very beginning.
And again, Stearns,
But-
I think we talked about earlier, Stearns came in and inherited both of these guys. Because what's was the bench? He was the bench coach last year. He could have went out and just made his own
Listen.
decision, but with Mendoza,
And
he
listen,
wanted
I
him
get
there.
this.
So-
MEZBX, he's adding on to it again. He said the excuses he doesn't have any
We haven't
protection
even
is
said
such
that once
bullshit.
today.
Bullshit. Who protects Jose Ramirez? We're talking about sustainability of working in the playoffs. Okay, what have the Guardians won with no protection for Jose Ramirez? Nothing. I don't see a ring. They got the biggest drought in history. So they definitely haven't won enough.
The best team was with the fraud Lindor. That's pretty crazy.
The best team was with that fraud, that bum making $341 million. How could he? That bum. But I mean, at the end of the day, again, and then listen, you could tell me that the Guardians went to the playoffs, but the Mets went to the playoffs too in 2022.
And when they beat the Yankees, I think that's
All
when
right.
you can have that conversation. But again, let's move on. If we get into the close,
Yeah, let's move on here because obviously the offense, if nobody bats 300, then they suck. So let's just move on, obviously. And I want to talk about let's actually just go to Edwin Diaz, because I do want to talk about the rotation, but let's actually talk about Edwin Diaz, because since it's been a glaring issue this past week, possibly this month, I would say he definitely has not been himself. And I think that we definitely can establish that Edwin Diaz, coming back from the injury, he definitely has not been the 2022 Diaz. He wasn't even 2020 Diaz or 2021 Diaz. He just has not been himself. So at the end of the day, I'm going to ask you guys of what you're seeing, particularly Frank and Andrew, who don't know ball. Andrew, let me go to you. What are you seeing from Edwin Diaz right now? Your concern level, everything. Unpack all of it.
Well, I mean, what's the obvious answer? We could just blame the WBC. It's the most useless tournament ever, and God forbid, players ever want to play in it, and it just ruins everything, and it's killed Edwin Diaz. The velocity, again, not being there. He's sitting 95, and that's not where especially his stuff, the slider's not been amazing. It's been kind of a meatball, especially you look at some of the Morel homer, it's just sitting on a tee. You look at the Josh Bell, he even said, he's sitting first pitch slider, and he knew it was coming, especially when he's a two-pitch guy. If his one of them isn't sharp, guys can just say, all right, his slider's not sharp, I'm sitting fastball. And especially now, if he's sitting at 95, he's not throwing 100 anymore. Especially, like we said, big league hitters are hitting anything lower, nowhere, or slaughtering anything at about 95 or lower. You're seeing that result. The doubles, the extra base hits. I mean, yes, the occasional 98, but that's occasionally. 99, I think, was the hardest pitch he's thrown all year. Like, it was the last time against the Phillies. Again, the Marcia.
He's reached 99 a few times.
Yeah, the last time was against the Phillies when he was choking that one.
His velo's getting better.
It is, and I'm not that worried about his velo. And I said it in the offseason that, like, I thought he would struggle in April and May. Once the weather gets hot and warmer, then you would start to see it. And you're seeing that. And again, 3 blown saves in a row. The Phillies, one of the best offenses in baseball. Yes, usually he's dominated them. Again, last year he dominated them when he was the greatest reliever in baseball 2 years ago. He'd carve them. Phillies are a good team. And again, like you said, if he's not having his sharp sliders, not hitting, he can sit in that fastball and they're dominating. Bison Stott, it's one, 440 pulled right center field. Again, and the Marlins one is more concerning because, again, like we said, they suck. And the fact that double, and then Josh Bell's, sitting first pitch slider and he's launching at dead center, that is a problematic thing. But again, am I full on saying he's god awful? No. Does there need to be some, some red flags? Yeah. But do I think he can get back out of it? Do I think he's ever going to be the best reliever in baseball again? Probably not. Can he just get back to being a really good reliever? I think that's still possible. And it's just another example of why the hell you do not pay relievers. The 2 best relievers in baseball get paid. Now they both suck. So, again, just kind of the Mets thing. They pay a reliever. He has, an outstanding season, gets injured, is now never going to be the same.
Like, this is the problem. Like, this is the thing that I listen to this all the goddamn time. It happens to what happened to Edwin Diaz. It's never going to happen again to anyone else. It really will never. I mean, you literally talked about, what was the last time that happened? Somebody got hurt celebrating. Kendrys Morales back in 2007.
Wait.
Didn't he throw the helmet and it
How
fell
about
on his
when
head?
Puerto Rico also broke Seth Lugo's elbow? Let's not.
That
forget
was for the championship. That's different. This was a second round of
this is now. And listen, as someone who's part of Puerto Rican, there's now 2 WBCs in a row where they take it out of Mets pitchers. So I can't say that I'm all in favor for it. Like I say, if you fool me once, shame on me. But
I'm just saying it's a freak accident. Like you can't really say. The only thing that you can say is, oh, the Mets are cursed. The Mets are this. The Mets are that. Like, that's all you can say. But like, in technical terms, was that actually like, come on, like, is that actually going to happen again? Like, is somebody going to split their knee open by celebrating?
You want to bet against the Mets? I'll make that bet.
Yes.
Somebody.
I would like to
broke
bet
his ankle fighting with his
wild boar. Exactly. You want to bet against?
But what I'm saying is,
listen,
getting hurt, not playing baseball,
was ruined on Duaner Sanchez going in a cab. Anything can
What
happen.
what I'm saying is, with these injuries, they're off the field. They're not while playing baseball, right? It's hilariously ridiculous that it happens, but it's a freak injury. So you can't really acclimate.
Ryan Church taking sweet chin music to the face.
You can't really
like.
You can't really say that you're like, oh, well, this is why we don't pay relievers because they end up jumping on the mound and scream. It's never gonna happen again. Like there's never gonna be a situation where a reliever is so goddamn good they get 5 years, $102 million, and then right after they like that situation. Well, like that, the probability of that happening is slim to none. If you want me to give you calculations on that, I could. But nobody's got time for that.
Carson, I think the point is, though, like, even if Diaz are healthy, like, the ability to replicate 2022, like...
No, he's not going to replicate 2020,
anyway.
but
like,
he
you
needs
don't
to replicate one thing in
million,
order to be effective.
$20 million to a one-inning pitcher is generally not...
It's a lot.
Something that's never happened before. No one's ever done it until we did it. You know, I sometimes think like, look, when Diaz actually got that contract, he's my favorite Met. So it was like, oh my God, I want Diaz to break the record. I want him to be the highest paid reliever, which is probably not really a good thing from like a team building standpoint. But it's like, I wonder if Epler literally was like, okay, Edwin, what do you want? We'll give it to you. Because, like, it happened before free agency even started.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. Was the negotiation tactics, like, really that easy?
I mean,
like,
it was done right
that's
away.
not good.
That's the thing that was so interesting to me. It was like first day of the offseason.
Yeah,
bam,
that was the priority.
He didn't even
like,
go to free agency. I don't think so.
Yeah.
But
No, it was like 2 days. It was 2 days before it opened. Because I mean, we made the big deal. Like this is Epler 2 days before it was going to open to the public. Boom, Diaz has got a record-breaking contract. So again, Billy Epler, thanks, bud, prioritizing a one-inning reliever.
My Diaz old man numbers, and again, I've noticed it more with the slider, but just in general against right-handed pitchers, 147 average, 560 OPS. Against left-handed hitters, 294 average, 977 OPS. I just think that slider
there's a
is
reason
just
as to why that, and I'm gonna tell you why.
His slider is not just.
Allow me to explain what's going on with Diaz.
It's going right in wheelhouses. Against righties, it looks good on the outside corner, but against lefties, if it doesn't get in there all the way, it's smashed.
Allow me to explain what's going on with Diaz, because I'm not gonna make any excuses for him because he's been bad. All right, he's like it's been bad. There's been a lot of bad. There's been some good, but there's been a lot of bad, especially recently. And it's on him as to what. There's no really weirdness as to compared to 2019. I want to say right now, this is not a 2019 problem, okay? I'm going to establish this right now. He is not having the same problem that he was having in 2019. Now, as for the velocity, it's pretty much sitting at the 97, 98. Fine. That's not what makes Edwin Diaz so effective. What makes Edwin Diaz so effective as the two-pitch reliever that he is that lethal, disgusting slider. Some people call it like this gyro-style cutter. Some people call it just the razor blade slider because it just late drop, boom, into the glove in the lower third of the zone. Now, as for Edwin Diaz's slider, now let's take a look at this weapon, shall we say, this immortal weapon in 2022. I'm gonna pop it up here. He was getting
we need
bigger
results.
We need something with this is too many letters.
This is just
all right. Well, okay.
Guys,
I'm sorry.
stats.
I'm sorry. It's just results and specs. That's literally it.
That sounds like some agency you don't want to get caught with.
VAA is very important.
On you,
God.
VAA is very important.
This is baseball. I'm not trying to solve.
VAA is extremely important.
God damn.
VAA destroys careers or makes careers. Okay.
VAA is the most important indicator to getting whiffs, with the fastball at least. So.
They need to put this shit
exactly.
off the
Especially
internet.
just like with overall pitch tunneling, that's just how it is. But what I'm saying is that, you look at this, whether you're looking at horizontal, the horizontal approach angle or whatever, he needs to get that slider to the arm side. That is his bread and butter. That is his main pitch. That's what he needs. People are talking about how he's not trusting his fastball enough. He's throwing his fastball at the same usage that he was in 2022. Okay? And I can honestly say that considering just a few increments of detail, shall we say, because we can do a little bit of a comparison here, okay? With Edwin Diaz's slider, which is the main pitch that he has that he needs to be working in order to be dominant, it's pretty much the exact same thing,
Andrew,
just a different story, okay?
This is, again, I'm making a cake.
It's the exact same thing. The drop has a few increment difference. The induced vertical break is a little bit far apart. The horizontal break's a little bit far apart. VAA is on the same. It's the same thing. So why is it so bad? Why is it getting crushed, especially by left-handed hitters? Well, the main thing about Edwin Diaz's slider is that he needs it to be used in the lower third of the zone. It needs to glide through the lower half of the zone and obviously land, like I said, on the arm side. You have the same specs, in the same realm of velocity, in the same realm of spin. The pitch shape is there, minus a few small increments. But here's the problem, okay? Here's the look at Edwin Diaz's elite slider in 2022, which was completely untouchable. Like we said, through that bottom half right there.
There's a weather storm going through the strike zone, so it's okay.
It basically, it's very, very smooth, right? Okay, that bottom lower third, right? It's gliding through. He's able to place it perfectly and locate it right there in the lower third of the zone. That's what he needs for it to get that late drop. Because if it doesn't, it's going to bleed over the plate. He needs that late drop, that little razor blade, like we just said. Well, guess what's happening this year?
Oof.
Bleeding way over the plate. The slider location is all over the place. So when you look at this, forget the fastball, trusting the fastball. The slider hasn't been doing its job. So his fastball doesn't mean anything. Who cares if he's going to trust his fastball or not? He needs that slider to be dominant or he ain't going to get anything. The slider needs to do what it does or nothing's going to work. That's his main bread and butter. That's his world-class pitch. And it's not doing that. Basically, long story short, with Edwin Diaz, at the end of the day, he's not getting the slider where he needs it. And it is costing him mightily. Rode and I have talked about this all the time. Command is so goddamn important for pitchers. He's not able to locate it where he wants it, and it is costing him. This is not a 2019 issue. 2019 was a little bit different. Upward tilt in his slider, different pitch shape. Dan Evelyn can go to hell.
I mean, if you look at the zone,
Dan Eiling can go to hell. Not Dan Evelyn. He's a legend.
He was hanging the slider so much in 2019.
Yeah,
it is kind of the same thing in my opinion.
It is kind of the same thing, but there's a different. Yeah. It's way worse because he's not able to locate it properly, and you're seeing when he does get these whiffs this year, that lower third. That lower part, that arm side that he needs to get it to. And he's not getting it there consistently. He's still getting whiffs on the slider. He's still getting it. And again, like I said, it's the same stuff, the same shape. But command is command. You got to locate. If you don't locate properly, it doesn't matter how amazing the stuff is. The ball's going to go over the fence. And that is what's happening with Edwin Diaz right now. Simply just that. The problem is, as simple as it is, my only fear here is the fact that it might take a little bit longer than we think it will to actually fix this issue. And that's a really, really big problem, especially with the workload that you're expecting Edwin Diaz to take on, the contract you gave him, yada, yada, yada. You know, he's the same. Let me just say he is the same guy, but with not the same command. Let's just say that. Let's say that.
I have 2 questions.
Yes.
Number 1, what are your thoughts on him pointing at the sky as Josh Bell is going dead center?
God, we got to bring a Hansel Robles.
130 feet.
All right.
I think
Here's
we need
my
to
thoughts
cut
on
him
that.
because of that.
I'm
personally.
so numb to so many of these moments in Mets history. Don't even care. To be honest, when he pointed to the sky, I was like, yeah, okay, whatever. Move on. Like, I don't even care. What's your second question?
My second question, what are your thoughts on him crying in the locker room and Sean Reed Foley and Francisco?
Yeah.
Lindor
Okay. First of all, listen, I think that Steve Gelbs does a really good job on SNY. I think he's one of the best on that channel. There's one guy we all know.
We all know.
That is not Steve Gelbs of that level.
No.
Steve Gelbs does a really good job. Whoever told him to report that or put that out,
Right, yeah,
that's
that's
ridiculous. Like,
Yeah.
why are we
I
doing
agree.
that?
There was a whole
Like, leave the guy alone.
I know.
Like,
Like,
what are
the
you
fact
doing?
they said it wait until the media had left. Like, that's the whole point.
The
of
only
whole
thing-
thing was the media left.
The only thing that they were missing was Edwin Diaz was crying in his locker room. We have video footage.
We have.
Like, that was the only thing they were
We're
missing.
gonna play it in 4K. There you go.
Like, let's play it in 4K. This time with slow music. Like, that was the only thing that they were missing. Like, that is just so it's so invasive. Like, just leave the guy alone. Like, obviously he's having a shit time. He's obviously not, smiling and having a good time that he's, what do you expect? I mean, obviously it's just, I just don't, that type of stuff shouldn't get out, obviously. But I understand. I feel for the guy, obviously, because he's coming off of a big injury. I mean, and he's just not what he was 2 years ago, and he's trying to work back from it in a market, in an audience that is gonna have a million eyes on him. Like, if he was in Cleveland, this would be a different story,
I mean,
So-
he can pitch
No one
in
would
New
know where he
York,
is.
though. We know he can pitch in New York. I don't know.
I don't
man.
think he can pitch with fans, to be honest.
I think he's gonna go back to
or
COVID.
in a non-clean inning. Can't pitch there. But anyway, if I could give my take, look, Edwin is he's my favorite Met. He's my favorite Met by a big margin, very large margin. It has broken my heart to watch him pitch. That being
Want a
said,
tissue?
if I'm not a real fan, if I'm gonna turn on him, which I'm not, I think I truly do believe this, that Edwin Diaz will return to his 2022 form eventually. I really do believe it.
Yeah.
I think the weather has had a good impact on his velocity, which has been improving. He's hitting 99. He's reaching 99 every other outing, I'd say. That's something that will improve with more strength from the leg.
Yeah.
The slider command. Oh my God. Like he's been getting away. Like when he had he before the Phillies outing, he was having a really good year. Like he was getting away with some really risky pitches. Like I was holding my breath every time he threw a pitch.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure
I'm
how
seeing
long.
this is. Let me add to that. I'm seeing I've seen a lot of clips of Mets fan pages, and this is no disrespect to them. Again, they're just being fans. They see a slider whiff, right, from Edwin Diaz. They're like, "Oh, that's a nasty slider." The slider that they're showing is at the top of the zone. That's not where that's supposed to go. Okay, he got away with that. All right.
I think there's
But
one of
again, he has this
Morel
world-class stuff that
I
maybe he
remember.
does get away with it at one point. But if he's facing a good hitter, if that goes into his wheelhouse, that thing's going to go over the fence.
All of a sudden, that Chris Monroe for Alonso trade isn't looking so bad after all.
No, I think there's better trades. I think there's way better trades.
I think in the positional versatility he has.
He
But
is
now-
minus
but
8
now the
away
Cubs
eight.
aren't-
He is
the Cubs got
minus
Michael
8
Bush
outs
now.
above
They don't
average
need-
on May 19th. I just want to put that out there. But look, Edwin.
That's another.
I really do. I think one thing that he has at his advantage, there are people who are turning on him. I think the overwhelming majority I've seen on Mets Twitter is that I think Edwin Diaz truly is the most likable, sweet, and just fan favorite on this team. I think there's not a Mets.
Oh, we didn't sign your ball. Shut up, Andrew.
I got him on the future for you, but that's the sweetest human being in the world. That's not even close. He can take number 2. He can have
Well,
number
the
2
second sweetest human on
Nah, he went to
on this
Boris.
team.
He's a loser.
I think with Edwin, like, I think we have confidence in him. The fans have confidence in him. You know, him getting that, I would support putting him on a minor league assignment, to be honest, to see him just destroy, like, send him to St. Lucie and just have him destroy
Send him
St.
to the
Lucie
complex.
hitters. And just like that, if, you know, I
don't know
think
about
he's going
that
to help
because
his team right now.
Jesus Baez probably could homer off of him. What do you think?
Would
Well,
take
well,
him
good thing
14.
Jesus Baez is on the same team. You know, I am
For
worried
those of
that
you who are
Edwin,
wondering about Jesus Baez, I mean, we'll get into we'll talk about a little bit of prospects in a little bit, but he's been destroying some really good pitching. He's in the lower levels of the minor leagues, and he's really impressed so far. I'm pretty sure he hit one, what was it, like 110 off of Luzardo when he was in rehabbing or something. It was pretty impressive. But, you know, other than that, I mean, listen, when he's coming into the game again, I'm very numb to it as of right now. I'm definitely in accepting mode as to where there's a possibility where if this team doesn't win, it's going to look a lot different, or if this team does win, they're going to move forward with, you know, maybe making a few moves with their flexibility. You know, is it a get right year for Edwin Diaz? Maybe. Am I against putting him out on the mound? No. Am I against putting him out in a save situation? No.
I am personally,
but like
he cannot close, Carson. Like he can't.
I get he can't close, but like, to be honest, I'm numb to so many losses, and like I'm looking towards. I think we're all looking towards 2025. Personally, in the back of our minds, we just don't know what's going to transfer to 2025. We don't know who's going to be on the team. They're trying to pick that out.
I mean,
Diaz is going to be here,
Diaz,
obviously.
2025 Diaz is going to be a problem. That's all I'll say. He's going to be a major problem for hitters.
Yeah.
You can clip
and
that.
I mean, then there's another thing of you know, the control of his slider. We can talk about that too. You know, there's a little bit more spin as compared to last year on his slider, which probably is worse for his own good a little bit, because he's losing control of it as well. And, you know, more of it is just command, and he's not able to locate it. But, you know, he's also losing a little bit of a control as well. So, you know, he just needs to be able to locate it, and he's going to be fine because the specs are the same. They're the same level. You know, they're just, it's just, he's leaving it over the plate. It looks like a meatball because he's putting it in meatball territory. And that's a problem. And that's stuff that you can't defend. You can defend his overall stuff, but you can't defend this type of command where the ball's going over the wall. I mean, nobody likes to see their team give up homers, right? They're backbreakers, okay? Which is I'm happy Drew Smith is taking a delay. But I mean, when I look at it for Diaz in general, I know that eventually he's going to be okay. I just don't know when. And that's a really big problem for your $102 million closer.
Just put him in low leverage. I mean, like,
you could.
Then he can't blow games. If he's back, we'll know. It'll be pretty obvious if he's back. Like,
I mean, they've already established they're going to go closer by committee. And they said that's going to happen. Reed Garrett's probably going to get the most because he's been the hot hand. So far, 6-out save today. We're so back. We're going to the World Series. But
I think there's something to be said about how much we're running him out there. I think he's pitching too much.
Yeah, he is pitching a lot, and we've had this trend of guys that they've been killing a lot. I would like to see some more high leverage experience for Sean Reed Foley, because I think that he has high leverage stuff. In theory, let's just say that. Stop bringing back Yohan Ramirez. Just cut him, please. Like, let's just do that. I don't know if he's back, but I think that it's still pending or whatever on DFA. I wouldn't be surprised. Joey Wendell gets he's DFA'd right now, Joey Wendell. I wouldn't be surprised if he stays with the organization in AAA. I really wouldn't be surprised. Because, like, who the hell is going to voluntarily say, $2 million? Yeah, I'll give that to Joey Wendell. I just hope they release his ass. But, you know, yeah, I think that they do have reliever depth for high leverage pieces. Jorge Lopez, I'd love to see him get the ninth inning a few times because Jorge Lopez has been good. I think that gets swept under the rug a lot with, you know, Reed Garrett having this big breakout so far. You know, Adam Ottavino, he's got, I mean, listen, Adam Ottavino gives you a heart attack no matter what. I mean, he's just a very nerve-wracking guy to watch. Can't hold base runners to save his life. He got better. Still can't hold base runners to save his life. But with Adam Ottavino in general, we've had a lot of walk problems. We're talking about giving up a lot of base runners. I think he has the lowest walk rate out of this entire pitching staff. And that's...
Which is the weirdest thing?
Is it concerning? Is it an outlier? You know, are the Mets just funny? Maybe all of the above. But, you know, with Adam Ottavino at his typical 50th percentile, he does have control issues. So how long does that stay? Who knows? I think that more all depends on how much you use him, Adam Ottavino. But again, they do have this depth that can protect this Edwin Diaz debacle right now. They do have arms that have been productive. Would it be nice for guys in the rotation to go 6 innings consistently? That'd be nice. That would be nice. Maybe occasional 7. And not 5 or 4. I'm looking at you, Jose Quintana. I'm looking at you, Adrian Hauser, for some reason is going to be starting this week. But Carrasco. I think that, you know, it all depends on the workload, to be honest. If you're not looking at, you know, the star power of Edwin Diaz, if he's not at that best, which he obviously isn't right now, it all depends on the usage of how effective these guys are going to be. Do I trust it? Do I trust that the usage is going to be fair and these guys won't be blown out by June? I don't know, to be honest. With the amount of base runners that they allow in the starting rotation, I don't know. But they're going to have to try. And the back end of the bullpen can survive without Edwin Diaz in a higher role. Because a lot of these guys have had the bounce back seasons, and, you know, hopefully they do get featured a little bit more because if this team's not competitive, ship some of these guys out the trade deadline. So if you look at the Mets bullpen right now, I mean, I'm going to ask you guys this straight up, and then we'll get to our next part here. We're almost running to 2 hours here. We can go all night, guys. This is all-nighter. It's a rager. We're back. Mets Weekly is back. But, you know, if I were to look at the Mets bullpen right now, who's the favorite to replace this closer role? Closer comes into the 9th inning, traditionalist shit. You rocking with Reed Garrett, Jorge Lopez, Adam Ottavino? Frank, I'll start with you. What do you think?
To me, I think it'd be Adam Ottavino. I think that Reed Garrett, I mean, he leads pretty much the team in wins. I think he's done a really great job of this, like, you need him in the 6th inning, you need him in the 7th inning, you need him in the 8th inning, you need him with runners on because his strikeout stuff is so good. I like him much better in that kind of, we call it like versatility role, kind of use him anywhere. It would change things a little bit if you had Brooks Raley in here to do that. Then maybe you could move Garrett to closer, but without Raley, that's a big piece of this bullpen that is missing. And even with Lopez, I feel like he's another one of those guys who's kind of just – he's pitched in every inning as well. I feel like he's just kind of there when you need him in any scenario because he doesn't have as much of a walk problem as some of these other guys on the staff do. So you're allowed to do that. I just think that with Ottavino, he's just been solid. And I think that just kind of keeping him to that 1 inning, just the 9th inning without – I mean, I think they've kind of overused him a little bit too much as well. I just think at his age, you just have to be very, very careful. He could lose that effectiveness so quickly. We saw it, especially the past couple of seasons, where the more they use him, all of a sudden the worse he got. I would hate to see that happen again. But if you kind of put him in a situation where it's like, okay, save situation, use Ottavino. The Mets haven't had many save opportunities lately, so you'd be able to kind of keep him fresh and just kind of – no, and again, it kind of goes back to that second game against Miami. It's like when it looks like this is a game you're about to win, you actually close it out and you win it. You know, I think that's got to be the key if you're going to start trying to turn things around in the other direction. It's like finish off the games that you've actually performed well offensively and capitalized, So I think that having like a safe guy that's ready, that's fresh in the ninth inning, he kind of does his thing. I feel like that makes the most sense. Ottavino, he's saved plenty of games for the Mets. I mean, once Diaz went down with the injury and Robertson got traded, I mean, it was Ottavino who was kind of doing that. So, and you know what? The hope is that this is a very short-term thing, and that Edwin Diaz coming in these like low leverage outings in other innings, that if he could just get, and like we're saying, not 22 form, but just
get the
good
slider over.
Get
it
like
over.
A very good reliever, then great. Then we can just go back to business as usual. So hopefully it's not a long-term thing. But I think, to me, the safe bet is Ottavino. I just feel like he's kind of been in the back end anyway. I like kind of keeping Reed Garrett more so available in other scenarios.
Yeah, I think that, with Adam Ottavino, it's more of a mental thing than actually production thing, because Adam Ottavino's been a solid reliever for a long time. He's had a great career, and I think that it's just basically, with the naked eye, he's tough to watch. He's a tough watch. He's a tough watch. He always will be a tough watch. It's just how slow he works. And it just slows down the game, and it gets a little tiring to watch. He's gotten the job done. He's had his blow-ups. But again, if you're going to go based off of experience, Adam Ottavino's your guy right there. Andrew, I'll go to you. How do you feel about filling this closer role while Edwin Diaz becomes the biggest bust in the history of the game?
Yeah, I mean, like we said, we hope it's not, again, a long-term thing, that he gets his head out of his ass and goes back to at least being 75% of the best reliever in baseball. Play the hot hand. So if that's Garrett, I don't really have a particular guy. You could play the matchup because you have Diekman, and let's see if there's a couple left. You can use Diekman. You can use Lopez. You can use Reed Garrett. For me, I'm playing the hot hand. So whoever it is, right now it's Garrett. If Lopez goes on a burner, then he has the ninth inning. But again, we're hoping this is maybe a 2-week thing, hopefully. Worst case scenario, and then he can get back to having Diaz in the ninth and getting everybody back in the role they were supposed to. But for me, I'm just working to see who is hot. So if it's Garrett, then we'll continue. And is he being overworked? Of course, because again, the Mets can't just spread out the wealth. They get one reliever that they seem to develop. They're going to kill him before even turns 32. So, but that's just the Met way. So for me, I'm just playing that hot hand. And if it's Garrett, give Garrett the ninth inning. And then hopefully, again, if we put Diaz back in low leverage, hopefully this is only like a week or two situation to get him back on track. And then everybody can get back to, okay, he's the ninth inning, he's in the eighth, or can be utilized more often, having the comfortability of back to having Diaz back to who he is.
Rode, I'll go to you too. What do you think?
I think Reed Garrett's my pick. I think he's the best reliever in this pen, other than Diaz when he's on, of course. Reed Garrett. I think he's built for it. He showed it today, and he's shown it before this season too.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's definitely seemed to be someone who's figured it out. Like, he really has, just out of nowhere. He was a waiver claim by Billy Epler, and that's the reason why we got to bring back Billy Epler once he's not suspended anymore. It's because of Reed Garrett. But no, I mean, I think that you got to look at the bullpen options. Whatever situation is the situation. I think that Mendoza, for the situation he's been put in, where you don't know if the starter is going to go 5 innings, I think that he has definitely managed the bullpen fairly well, because he's had a decent amount of options around him that have been very, very stellar. And, even though, aside from, the whole Diaz thing, which, that's a different topic, you have a bad outing from Adam Ottavino, next one, he's right back on the horse. You haven't really had a hole in the bullpen so far. And you really haven't had someone who's just consistently bad, or somebody who was expected to be really, really good. They're just consistently bad. They can't find it. You have a bad outing from Reed Garrett. Next time he bounces back. It's a fickle situation, obviously, with relievers. It always will be. And hopefully that's the situation with Edwin Diaz. And I hope that we need him. I mean, the closer shortens the game. You know, he has some of the best stuff in all of baseball. Obviously, I said, I mean, it's still the same. It's still the same. It's still there. He's just got to locate it. He's got to apply it. And it might take a little bit longer than, I mean, you hope that it doesn't, but it might take a little bit longer than you think. And I don't really think the Mets really have a choice in the matter because they're tied down to him. So it's not like they can just say, oh, let's just give up on this. But in terms of also arms in the bullpen, there are 3 arms that there are an injury update on here, which I do want to pop up on the screen. And we also have the other guy that's another factor into the pitching as well. So let's go to the injury report real quick. Brooks Raley, he was placed on the 15-day IL back in April. It's not really looking good for him. He was recently diagnosed with a UCL sprain in his left elbow, and he's been shut down for 2 weeks this week to see if he avoids surgery, which to me, I'm not really confident in this. I as soon as I saw a little bit less, variance of that, I don't know about that, to be honest. With Francisco Alvarez, of course, the man behind the plate, the catcher of the future, he did obviously undergo surgery for a torn ligament in his left thumb back in April. He did have the stitches removed a week later or 2 weeks later. And he is expected around mid to late June, but we do not know what is going to go on with a rehab assignment. We don't know what the situation is, of course, with him. And then Shintaro Fujinami, if you haven't been keeping track with AAA baseball, which you should, it's pretty cheap, the MLB.TV. Let's just say this. It has been brutal, very, very brutal for Shintaro Fujinami. Let's just say that. We know that he was pretty bad in Oakland. This might be even worse. But he was recalled from AAA Syracuse because he was on the 40-man roster, and he was placed on the 15-day injured list with a shoulder sprain. And if you look at the numbers, we're not gonna even repeat them. If you want to see the numbers, if you're on the audio version right now, just go ahead, flip over to this part in video form, and you'll see it. We won't go completely crazy. He's just been beyond erratic. And then, of course, Drew Smith, who was supposed to be activated off the injured list earlier this week. He felt a pinch in the back of his shoulder, playing catch on Tuesday, and he was expected to be here, but we still don't have an update. All I can say is just on that, aw shucks. Aw shucks. But I do want to get into, obviously, for a second, the starting rotation. I want to get into that. We did have some news come out about Kodai Senga, where he kind of took a pause on his rehab to kind of perfect those mechanics. He was kind of on that pace to, let's just say, I don't know if it was a rehab assignment, but face batters. He did face like Brooklyn level batters, and then he kind of paused it or whatever at the beginning of the month, like 10 days ago. He is still trying to perfect his mechanics. And it seems like this June return may turn into a late June or a July, depending on the pace of it. Is it after the trade deadline? It's up in the air right now. And currently with the Mets, of how they've been bleeding in the starting rotation, it's been good, but there's been a lot of bumps. The Mets have a lot of options, but they're not Kodai Senga. And I do want to talk about the state of the rotation, obviously, because it looks like we're going to be out with without our top guy for a lot longer than we thought. I don't think they're classifying as it a setback, but I mean, look at all of these options that the Mets have right now. Luis Severino, he's had a solid season. Sean Manaea, he's been good. Needs to bring down the walks a little bit, please and thank you. It says that he only gave up 1 home run in 54 fly ball events. He did give up a home run today, so that's completely outdated. Jose Quintana, he's had some good. He has had some really, really bad. Adrian Hauser will be starting and back into the rotation on Tuesday. We have Tyler McGill, who is also going to be back in the rotation, coming back from a injury, which was, I believe, shoulder strain or something like that, after his directly after his first start that he made, and he's been pretty good in his 4 rehab starts. He looks overall results wise, we'll see, what he does on the mound, of course. David Peterson, of course, he is still recovering from surgery to repair torn labrum in his left hip. We still don't know what the situation is with him. It seems like he seems as AAA depth currently. Christian Scott, of course, he made his major league debut. He struggled a little bit his last outing, but so far he's definitely shown some really good shades of being a possible frontline piece in the future so far. Jose Budo and Joey Lucchesi, both of them were both put in. They were both optioned down to AAA Syracuse this week. Lucchesi made a spot start against Philly. Wasn't great. Jose Budo, in 38 innings, he has been very solid, but recently the walks have gone up. I'm not really sure as to why they kind of sent down Jose Budo like in a vacuum. I get it, but also I don't get it. But again, walks are an issue. You need guys to throw strikes. I get it, but I don't get it, and then I don't get it, and then I get it. You know what I mean? Get it? Yeah.
I
just had a stroke there. Sorry.
I think the most confusing part about Budo is the fact that you send him down to maybe work on something, kind of clear up the walks, but the alternative being Hauser going back into a rotation is just not a better situation for the Mets. It's like I'd rather let Budo keep learning on the major league level, because it's like we've talked about, he still hasn't really gotten like that full playing time on the major league level. And it's like, let this guy work through it. And I think that, when it comes to developing young players, I've always been of the mindset that the way to actually improve them as major league players is to play in the major league. So I don't think that, him going back to Syracuse and then, having Hauser come back in and just beyond blown up. I mean, like, you can't even put into, like, you look at the ERA of 8, like that, it seems about right. Like on any given start, if he was out there long enough, he could give up 8 runs. Like that's how bad Adrian Hauser has been. So I think that's the confusing part about the switch. But what's very interesting to me is with McGill and Peterson, they both only have 1 walk in 4 rehab starts. And I'm like, I just hope that could translate to the big leagues, because of all of it, well, not obviously with Pearson, we know the wall problem, but with McGill too, it's like,
McGill too.
If they get to the big leagues, all of a sudden they're just walking everyone. It's like, well, what are we doing? I just think that's really weird. I've made my concerns clear about Quintana. I just don't think that any of his stuff looks all that appealing right now. He kind of looks like batting practice to me. I just don't think anything is just doing what it should do. MIA has been pretty good. I mean, sometimes it takes him a lot of pitches to get through it, but he's been able to get through it. And then, Severino, the stuff is good. I mean, obviously the results for the most part are good. It didn't end well in the Miami start, but I think all in all that's been good. But as we know, the key is Senga, and same thing with him. Is like I understand the mechanics of like trying to come back, and your mechanics are good, but I think it also kind of depends on like what state the team is in. That's like we kind of need the guy pitching if he's healthy.
Yeah, of course. But I think that if this was an elbow situation, it'd be a lot different. I've said it multiple times. Shoulders are so tricky. You just don't know. It's very unpredictable. And for him wanting to take the time, I don't blame him. But again, it's frustrating. It really is frustrating because, we've gone through it so many times. We really have with the top pitcher. Is he going to be alive the next day? Is he going to be on the mound the next day? This has been a concern for a long time. There's been a lot of turnover in the Mets rotation for years and years and years. We hope that Senga, can do it, but at this pace, we're still kind of up in the air day by day. We're in the middle of May. We were expecting him back June 1st, June 10th, now maybe a little bit later than that. So you just don't know how they can really hold up in the rotation. It's not really the fact of ability or anything like that. Are they going to replace the innings that Kodai Senga gives you? what we've seen so far, no. Typically, it's 5 innings. 5 and fly. Right, Andrew? 5 and fly, man. But in terms of the rotation, Andrew, I'll go to you, and then we'll get into the studs and duds.
Yeah, I mean, you've had some bright spots. Mania and Severino have looked good. I mean, Christian Scott earlier than most of us anticipated. Again, he's a rookie. He looked good in Tampa. Was a decent start against the Braves. Again, he goes into Miami and gets shell shocked. But again, let the kid just third big league start. I'm not jumping off a bridge yet about him. But again, he's looked decent. Again, the walks have been the problem throughout, the whole pitching staff. Again, just got to love just walking everybody. Budo, again, that's been his biggest problem. But again, for a 5, 6th best option, 7th best option in the rotation, he's been fine. Adrian Hauser, again, not every GM is going to hit 1,000. But god damn, what the hell did David Stern see in 3 different locations? He needed to bring this guy with him. He loved him in Houston, bring him to Milwaukee, and bring him here. Oh, okay. That was not third time the charm for David. But, again, for the most part, they've looked good. Again, Severino, I hope, continues to pitch well because especially how desperate teams are at the trade deadline, he's probably the biggest starting pitcher you can move and get the biggest return for. So if he keeps pitching well, obviously you want to play for that because, again, play for the future. But, again, overall, when you're seeing it incomplete because, again, you don't have your ace. And when you don't have your ace, again, you're making guys go into slots that they're not supposed to be in. Some guys have pitched well, and it's like, okay, this is a pleasant surprise. Again, some guys are pitching to the stats at the back of the baseball card, as Mr. David Stern said at the press conference. And again, here comes the legendary depth of David Peterson and Tyler McGill for year 95 of these guys coming in. And God, they're almost 32 at this point, it seems like. These guys have been here for 30 years, and everyone thinks, there's still major options. And honestly, Christian Scott and Budo passed them.
One thing, and this disappoints to Road, of course. Listen, one thing we do know, the one way to get Adrian Hauser right, he's got to pitch to contact. And Cleveland, they make contact. We know they make contact, all right? There's like this whole, but whatever. Okay. But other than that, I think that we'll get into studs and duds. Why not? Let's go into it. Let's throw some guys under the bus. Let's praise a few. In this series alone, we're just going off of series, not studs and duds of the week, just this series. So small sample sizes, call people losers, call people winners. Okay. I'll go to Andrew first. Who do you got as your stud?
I mean, it's pretty obvious. You hit homers, you get rewarded, and again, Brennan Nimmo, big clutch homer. He had a couple of RBIs in a game we thought we'd win, a couple of RBIs in yesterday's game. Hit for power. Again, he's going to hit 35 homers and hit more. He might hit more than Pete Alonso at this point. Who knows? In a Met uniform.
Yeah. Okay. Frank, your stud?
Yeah, it's got to be JD Martinez. I mean, this is a guy that, even against Jesus Luzardo, he's still out here getting hits. These multi-hit games. The exit field looks pretty good. They're starting to see some balls go off the wall. So I've been encouraged what I've seen. I really wish that the Mets kind of got on base more in front of him because I think that's really where he excels, just with runners on base, just finding a hole in the outfield. Like, it's just kind of what he does. He like we say, he's just one of those guys who just wake up and hit. Like, that's just how it feels with JD Martinez. He's just very steady presence, and I like what I see. And I hope that we can kind of make something out of it. As far as actually having it be worth it, him having a good bat right now before he gets traded with the way it's going in a couple months. So I was glad that they signed him, and it would kind of stink to lose him, but ultimately, like in the long term, I get it. But I definitely got to give him props when he's playing well.
Of course, Frank wants to hold on to a 90-year-old man.
I want the team to be doing well, so they would have to keep him. But again, if they're not doing well, obviously got to move him.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have JD Martinez in postseason appear. I mean, come on, that's JD Martinez. I mean, but Road, what do you think?
I'm gonna go with Mark Vientos. I think he's playing well. He had some nice hits, some hard hits. Mark Vientos, I want to see him play more, please. I don't, as I've made clear, I respect his talent, but I just, Brett Beatty has not earned anything to me. I think Vientos should be getting all the playing time for a bit. You know, and Beatty can go down to AAA, maybe work on his mechanics. But yeah, Vientos, I really like what I've seen.
Yeah, Vientos, so far, again, we need to see some playing time from him, but he's definitely earned it so far. I mean, no one's ran away with that third base job. I mean, we've had that discussion at least like 100,000 times. I am going to go with Tyrone Taylor. Big game today. In the limited playing time that he has had, I'd say that he maybe was cooling off going into this series, but again, he's not playing every day, of course. I personally think he probably should be playing every day. Maybe in left field, you know what I mean? But I think that if Bader is upset about his playing time, I don't know if this is true, but is Bader upset about his playing time? I don't know. But again, this is my rule for everyone. This is my rule for everyone, okay? If you're unhappy here, you want out, we will gladly ship you out of here. That's all I'm saying. So if he's upset about his playing time, he's upset about his playing time, and we can move on from that. But I'm just saying, Tyrone Taylor, in my opinion, has earned the spot as compared to him at this current moment. But, you know, it could obviously change. Let's go to duds. Again, like we said, Mets have been embarrassed in South Beach at the bottom of the screen. So there's been a lot of embarrassing points. Frank, I'll go to you.
Yeah, I'll go with the one that isn't obvious. Jake Diekman, he did not have a great series. It felt like he pitched just about every single day and gave up a run every time he was out there. And they were using him very late in the game too, like end of game. So I found that interesting. I don't know if I agree with that. I think, again, obviously Brooks Raley, the roles are supposed to be different, but I think he should be more utilized in lower leverage earlier in games. I just don't think ninth inning is really the time to be using Diekman.
Andrew?
Yeah, I'll just rip the obvious band-aid. Choking a 4-run lead in the ninth inning to a god-awful Marlins team. I mean, that's the most embarrassing thing when, again, you're supposed to be one of the best relievers and you're going up against a god-awful lineup. Like, it's pretty self-explanatory right there.
Yeah. Pretty easy. Brooke?
I mean, I'm going to go with Jeff. I know he had a couple hits. You know, I feel like a lot of the duds, the offense did play well, and the pitching, for the most part, was fine. And I don't want to go with Scott because he actually did get out of a bases-loaded jam, you know, in his third career start. That's really impressive. But, you know, Jeff McNeil, man, like, I don't know how much longer I have to wait, like for him to just be productive, man. Like, it's been a year and a half, and we need to get some more out of him. And it's that simple.
I mean, we can do an entire other episode about Jeff McNeil. Because I got tons. But nobody got time for that right now. I saw a stat regarding this guy that I was just like, why? So I'm just going to put him here. It has nothing to do with the Miami series, but you guys stole all my other ones. So I'm going to go with Omar Narvaez because what is it? He has like one hit at home in his entire Mets career. Like what is this like? Okay. And not to mention with him behind the plate, the pitchers don't do well. I mean, they really don't. I don't know if it's they just don't communicate well with him or he's just basically a detriment defensively, but I mean, he has just been really, really bad. I think that Nito should be getting a majority of the playing time, obviously. I think that, you know, pitchers trust Nito a little bit more as compared to Narvaez. I think they have a little bit better of a chance of throwing out runners with Nito. Not much of a chance, but, you know, whatever. We're obviously just waiting for Francisco Alvarez, but again, I think we were talking about this off stream, I think a few days ago. Narvaez most likely is the guy to go when Francisco Alvarez comes back.
Yeah, Nito's
It'll
gotten
be
multiple
interesting.
starts while Alvarez has
Yes.
been down. So I feel like that kind of tells all you need to know. It's
I mean,
like we
Narvaez is
talked
getting
about,
paid
is
more,
that
but
both aren't going to hit. You might as well get the guys actually playing good defense making the starts.
yeah. And again, I think that, he's Nito, but he does give you value. But when you're getting pretty much a 0 from both sides from Omar Narvaez, I mean, what's even the point of putting him in the lineup? You have to, because you have to give catchers rest because, Tomas Nito, whether he's valuable or not to the team, he can't be playing every single day. No catcher can be playing every single day. It's just how it is. We had some other stuff that I was going to go over, but the Mets-Cleveland series going into this, of course, I just want to put some thoughts into that, and then we'll head out of here. Some of the headlines, of course, Tyler McGill returning to the rotation. You also have Adrian Hauser back in the rotation as well. I think Jose Quintana will probably make a start as well. We will be facing our old buddy Carlos Carrasco for one of these starts. And Francisco Lindor will be returning to Cleveland for the first time since being traded to the Mets. So that should be interesting. Let's see if he gets an ovation. I don't know. But other than that, going into this series, guys, give your thoughts and opinions of what you think. Any random thoughts, and then we'll also merge it with the parting words as well, because we are past 2 hours here, and we just wanted to kind of extend it a little bit to make up for the lost time that we had in the last few weeks. But regular episodes will not be this long. This is just a kind of a special thing. So, Frank, I'll start with you. Going into this series, going into everything, parting words. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think the McGill one is going to be big. I do want to see kind of how he does, because it's been a while since we've seen him, and just see what he could give. I'd really like to see, to ask for a lot, but some length from a starter. I know we're not going to get from Hauser, because the one thing that does worry me is that you could only go so long. Like we talk about the 5 innings, 4 inning starts. It just really weighs on the bullpen. And like we say, you don't want to have Reed Garrett always having to go 2 innings. You don't always want Ottavino working back-to-back days, and Lopez and Diekman. Like they're older guys, like especially with Ottavino and Diekman, that their effectiveness, it could go away quickly. So I do want to see some kind of starter give us length, and I don't think it's going to be Hauser. So I'm looking at McGill to step up. And then, when it comes to facing Carrasco, we saw him just beat up so many times while he was pitching for the Mets. If he shuts them down, I will be very upset. It's just like, come on now. He just doesn't have much left. He's a great guy, but he does not have much left. So I think that him versus Hauser, that's maybe going to be a lot of offense. Who knows? Or maybe they'll both pitch a gem. You just never know in baseball. But Cleveland's had a great year. They're always known for their great pitching. You're going to be facing Tristan McKenzie in this series in that last matchup against Quintana. So this is an interesting test for the Mets offense, because, we talked about the new construction of line. You had 9 runs, then you had 7 runs, but that was against Miami. It's like, okay, now you're facing a good pitching staff in Cleveland. That's going to be a real test of how this new lineup formation is doing. So I'm just kind of curious to see how the rotation does, and then the new order of the hitters.
Good to see Carlos Carrasco back in Cleveland, but he doesn't have much time left in this league. Let's just be real for a second. So if they do get shut down, I'm with you, Frank. We're on a different level of pissed, even though he worked with Driveline. I just will say, ooh. Like it's showing his age, like we've said before. Rode, I'll go to you.
Yeah, I think with this Cleveland series, either sweep them or get swept, because I'd rather make it clear that we're gonna sell at the deadline, or see this team actually play really fucking good. So it's like, give me one or the other, right? I think, I do believe we will probably end up losing this series. I'm not trying to be negative, but Cleveland's playing really well. I don't trust Hauser. I know Carrasco is going to deal against us because that's what's going to happen with the Mets. And, man, I don't know. Just please, blow it up.
So the frustration. Andrew? Your return to Mets Weekly. It was a long one, but welcome back. How do you feel?
Well, we all know Carrasco's throwing a 7-inning, going to strike out 13, give up 1 run. It'll be a Jeff McNeil homer just to make it completely what the fuck. But yeah, again, Cleveland's a good team. They're pitching well. Again, they don't have any protection. Jose Ramirez is all by himself. Josh Naylor or Bo Naylor. Well, both Naylors doing pretty well over there. So again, they're a good team. They're battling Kansas City and a god awful division for a division title. But again, they pitch well. Andres Gimenez revenge tour, like you said, Lindor finally going back to Cleveland. So again, there's a lot of things that look to be good. Again, the return of the greatest pitcher of all time in Tyler McGill, and then the greatest pitching matchup of all time of Adrian Hauser versus Carlos Carrasco in 2024. So again, it's going to be let's say an adventure. If we see, would I love to see a sweep? Yeah, but I'd also like to have a date with Haley Steinfeld, but she's dating Josh Allen. So sometimes we're just not allowed to have nice things.
Well, you've seen some of your teams win championships, so
yeah, good times.
You get your nice things, all right?
Yeah.
Rangers, for the God's sakes, just please save me. Save me, save me, save me. Other than that, this has nothing to do with the Mets, but let's just say, listen, for those Knicks fans out there, I apologize. I'm sorry. It wasn't meant to be. I think that at the end of the day, it just wasn't. Too many injuries. There's just too many bullets we took to survive there. But get healthy and they'll be back. Don't worry. But as for the Mets, oh boy, be better than this. I don't care that they won today. That was embarrassing. It really was embarrassing to just see them just basically get outclassed by a Marlins team that has I don't know. Like they're 6 feet into the ground already. It was just ridiculous.
I mean, they have been almost 500 since they traded Luis Ariz. So maybe Luis Ariz was the whole problem the whole time. They think there were 6-8 going into the series. So
maybe toxic second basemen. They got to get rid of them. Maybe that's the key to everything. You just got to get rid of the second baseman. But other than that, guys, for those of you who are watching live and watch the entire thing or tuned in for a little bit, thank you for doing that as well. If you're watching on playback, make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the post notification button so you guys can be involved in the live chat as well. So when is the next live? 6 weeks from now. Explosive Diarrhea says that. No, it will be after the Cleveland series where we've got tons of fun stuff coming in the future, of course. We will have some special guests maybe pop on here as well, scattered in and out. And we're just going to talk about the roller coaster, which is 2024 Mets baseball, which you'd like to find some consistency, but currently we're kind of still searching for it. But other than that, we'll see you guys next time. Episode number 51 will be live after the Cleveland series, most likely Thursday. Again, like I said, tons of awesome stuff coming, but we'll see you guys next time. It's good to be back. Let's go Mets, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace out.